Welcome, history lovers and adventure seekers, to our journey back in time, deep into the heart of one of the world's most magnificent mountain ranges. Today, we begin our exploration of the great Inca Empire. But to truly understand their story, we must first understand the world they inhabited. This isn't just any landscape. This is the backbone of a continent, the spine of South America's mighty Andes Mountains. Imagine a world painted on an epic scale. Picture peaks that claw at the heavens. So high, their summits are permanently crowned with brilliant white snow, glistening under a fierce equatorial sun. These are the Apis, the sacred mountain spirits, the Inca revered, silent giants watching over the empire. Now, let your gaze drift downwards, into valleys shrouded in an ethereal, surrealing mist. Here, the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and lush vegetation. These cloud forests are a world of their own, alive with the calls of exotic birds and the rustle of unseen creatures. This is a land of dramatic contrasts. One moment, you're standing on a windswept, high-altitude plateau, the Altiplano, a vast, seemingly endless plain where the sky feels so close you could almost touch it. The next, you're descending into a deep, jagged canyon carved by a roaring river over millions of years. This rugged, vertical world was the stage upon which the Inca drama unfolded. It wasn't an obstacle for them. It was their home, their fortress, and their provider. Stretching over 4,300 miles, the Andes mountain chain is the longest in the world. It runs like a colossal artery from modern-day Colombia, slicing through Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, all the way down to Argentina and Chile. This immense range was the unifying force of the Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. The mountains dictated everything, where they built their cities, how they farmed, the routes of their famous roads, and even the nature of their gods. Think about the sheer scale of it. The Inca capital, Cusco, was nestled high in a mountain valley, the navel of the universe. From this center, their influence spread outwards, not across flat, easy plains, but up and over these colossal peaks. Building an empire here required a level of ingenuity and resilience that is almost impossible to comprehend. They didn't just survive in the Andes. They thrived, mastering the vertical environment in a way no civilization had before, or has since. The geography of the Andes created a mosaic of microclimates. In a single day's walk, you could travel from a freezing glacier-capped peak down to a temperate agricultural valley, and then descend further into a hot, humid jungle. This incredible diversity was the key to the empire's strength. The Inca learned to harness these different zones, growing potatoes and quinoa on the high plateaus, maize in the mid-level valleys, and coca and fruits in the jungle fringes. This vertical archipelago system allowed them to cultivate a vast array of crops, ensuring a stable food supply for millions of people. But the mountains weren't just a source of sustenance. They were a source of immense wealth. Hidden within their stony hearts were veins of gold and silver. For the Inca, these metals weren't currency. They were sacred. Gold was the sweat of the sun, and silver, the tears of the moon. They were used to create breathtaking works of art and adorn their most sacred temples, reflecting the divine power that the Inca believed resided in the very mountains around them. The challenges were immense. Earthquakes, landslides, and volcanic eruptions were a constant threat. The thin air at high altitudes made every breath a conscious effort. The steep, unforgiving terrain made travel and communication incredibly difficult. Yet, the Inca overcame it all. They terraced the mountainsides, turning near vertical slopes into productive farmland. They built suspension bridges of woven grass that spanned impossible chasms, and most famously, they constructed a sophisticated network of roads, the Cápac, that stitched their sprawling mountain empire together. This road system was an engineering marvel, covering over 25,000 miles. It wasn't a simple path. It was a complex network of paved highways, stone stairways carved directly into cliffsides, and tunnels cut through solid rock. Along these roads, relay runners known as Chesky could carry messages and goods across the empire with astonishing speed, keeping the emperor in Cusco connected to the furthest corners of his realm. The Andes weren't a barrier to their expansion. The Inca made the mountains their highways. So, as we prepare to delve deeper into the culture, politics, and daily life of the Inca, remember this landscape. Every story we tell, every achievement we admire, is set against this backdrop of snow-capped peaks, misty valleys, and rugged plateaus. The Andes Mountains were not just where the Inca lived. They were the very foundation of their existence, shaping their beliefs, their society, and their ultimate destiny. This was their world, the roof of the world, a kingdom built among the clouds. Join us next time as we walk the Inca roads and explore the marvels of Cusco, the heart of the empire. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of our journey. Welcome back to our series on the great civilizations of the Andes. Last time, we set the stage. Today, we're diving deep into Chapter 2, Before the Empire. Long before the Inca rose to dominate the continent, a vibrant tapestry of cultures flourished, laying the groundwork for everything that followed. These weren't just stepping stones. They were mighty civilizations in their own right, with incredible achievements in art, engineering, and social organization. Forget what you think you know about ancient Peru. The story is far richer and more complex than just one empire. Let's journey back, way back, to the northern coast of modern day Peru, around 100 to 700 AD here. The Mocha civilization thrived in the arid river valleys. They weren't a unified empire in the way we often think of one. Instead, they were a collection of independent city-states, each with its own ruler, but all sharing a common culture, religion, and a truly astonishing artistic style. The Mocha were master artisans. Their pottery is some of the most expressive and realistic in the ancient world. These aren't just simple pots and pans. They are three-dimensional portraits, windows into their daily lives, their rituals, and their beliefs. We see warriors with elaborate helmets, priests performing ceremonies, and even detailed depictions of local wildlife. These ceramics were often created using molds, allowing for mass production. But the finest pieces, the portrait vessels, are so individual and lifelike you feel like you're staring into the face of someone who lived 2,000 years ago. But the Mocha's genius wasn't limited to pottery. They were also incredible engineers and architects. They built massive adobe brick pyramids, known as like the Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna. These structures dominated the landscape, serving as religious centers, administrative hubs, and tombs for the elite. The Huaca de la Luna, for example, is famous for its brilliantly colored murals, which have been preserved for centuries, showing their fierce deities and complex mythological scenes. Life in the desert is tough, but the Moche were masters of irrigation. They constructed a vast network of canals to channel water from the Andes, turning the dry coastal plains into fertile agricultural land. This allowed them to support a large population and build their impressive cities. But like many ancient cultures, the Mochia eventually declined, likely due to a combination of factors, including severe climate change, a cycle of floods and droughts, and internal social unrest. Yet, their legacy lived on, passed down through the cultures that followed. Now, let's travel south to the arid plains of the Nazca region. Flourishing at roughly the same time as the Mocha, the Nazca are world famous for one thing. Above all else, the Nazca lines. These are gigantic geoglyphs, enormous designs etched into the desert floor. They depict everything from simple geometric shapes and spirals to complex figures of animals, like hummingbirds, monkeys, and spiders. Some of these figures are hundreds of meters across, so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the air. This, of course, has led to all sorts of wild theories, but the truth is just as fascinating. Archaeologists believe the lines were created by removing the reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles that covered the surface of the Nazca Desert, revealing the light-colored ground underneath. The dry, windless climate has preserved them almost perfectly for centuries. But why did they make them? The leading theory is that they were connected to rituals, perhaps appeals to the gods for water. The Nazca lived in one of the driest places on Earth, so water was everything. The lines may have functioned as ceremonial pathways, with people walking them during religious processions. But the Nazca were more than just their lines. Like the Mocha, they were skilled potters, creating beautiful, polychrome ceramics with a distinctive, highly polished finish. They also engineered remarkable underground aqueducts, known as puquios, to tap into subterranean water sources. Many of these puquios are still in use today, a testament to their incredible engineering prowess. The Nazca culture also eventually faded, but their mysterious lines remain, a silent, awe-inspiring message from the ancient past. As we move forward in time, to around 600 to 1000 AD, two new powers emerge, representing a shift towards larger, more centralized states. These are the Wari and the Tiwanaku, often considered the first true empires of the Andes. Let's start in the southern highlands, near the shores of the magnificent Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. This was the heartland of the Tiwanaku civilization. Tiwanaku was a monumental city, the spiritual and political capital of a vast state. Its ceremonial center was built with a level of stonework that is simply mind. They used massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fitting them together with such precision that you can't slip a knife blade between them. This technique, without the use of mortar, would later be perfected by the Inca, but it was the Tiwanaku who were the early masters. The most iconic structure is the Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block of andesite, featuring a central figure, often identified as the staff god, a major Andean deity. The Tiwanaku developed a unique agricultural system to thrive in a high-altitude environment. They used raised fields, or camelones, which were planting platforms separated by canals. This ingenious system helped protect crops from frost and drought by using the water in the canals to regulate temperature. This allowed them to produce massive food surpluses, supporting a large population and fueling their expansion. The Tiwanaku state extended its influence through a network of colonies, trade, and religious ideology, reaching across modern-day Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. Meanwhile, in the central highlands of Peru, the Wari Empire was on the rise. The Wari and Tiwanaku were contemporaries and neighbors, and they clearly interacted, sharing certain artistic and religious symbols, like the staff god. But the Wari were distinct. They were a more militaristic and administratively organized empire. Their capital, also called Wari, was a massive, sprawling city with multi-story buildings, temples, and residential compounds, all enclosed by towering walls. The Wari were masters of organization and infrastructure. They built a huge network of roads, a precursor to the famous Inca road system, to connect to different parts of their empire and move armies and goods. They established planned provincial centers, built in the Wari architectural style, to control their territories. This was a new level of state control in the Andes. They were also incredible weavers. Their textiles are among the finest ever produced, with complex designs and vibrant colors, often used as a form of wealth and to signify high status. The relationship between Wari and Tiwanaku is a topic of much debate. Were they rivals? Trading partners? Two sides of the same coin. We don't have all the answers, but it's clear they were the two dominant forces of their time. Around 1000 AD, both empires began to collapse, again likely due to a mix of drought and internal conflict. Their decline created a power vacuum in the Andes. This period of fragmentation, with smaller kingdoms vying for power, would last for a few centuries, but the foundations had been laid. The Mocha's engineering, the Nazca's ritual landscapes, the Tiwanaku's monumental architecture and high-altitude farming, and the Wari as imperial administration and road networks, all of these achievements became part of the Andean cultural inheritance. They were the building blocks, the knowledge base, that a new power, emerging from the small city of Cusco, would draw upon to forge the largest empire the Americas had ever seen. The Inca didn't appear out of nowhere. They stood on the shoulders of giants, and that's where we'll pick up next time, in Chapter 3, with the rise of the Inca Empire itself. We'll see how they synthesized thousands of years of Andean civilization to create their incredible world. Thanks so much for watching. If you're enjoying this journey into the past, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Say you then. Welcome back to our journey through the incredible history of the Inca Empire. Today, We're diving deep into the story of a city that was more than just a capital. It was the sacred heart of an entire civilization. This is the story of Cusco, the navel of the world. Our tale begins not with grand palaces, but with humble origins. Before it became the epicenter of a sprawling empire, Cusco was a small, unassuming settlement nestled high in the Andean mountains. Its early history is woven into the fabric of myth, most famously the legend of Manco Cápac and Mama Oclo. As the story goes, these children of the sun god Inti emerged from the waters of Lake Titicaca, carrying a golden staff. Their divine mission was to find the perfect place to build a city. After a long journey, they reached a fertile valley where the staff sank effortlessly into the earth. This was the sign they had been waiting for. This was the place where they would found their city, Cusco. Whether you see this as divine prophecy or a clever founding myth, the location was undeniably strategic. Perched at an altitude of over 11,000 feet, the valley offered fertile land for agriculture, particularly maize, and was naturally defensible, surrounded by towering peaks. This combination of spiritual significance and practical advantage set the stage for Cusco's incredible destiny. For centuries, it remained a modest regional center, one of many small kingdoms vying for power in the highlands. But everything was about to change with the arrival of a truly visionary leader. The ninth Sapa Inca, Pachacuti, Inca Yupanqui is the man credited with transforming Cusco from a town of mud and thatch into a magnificent stone metropolis. Ascending to power in the early 15th century, after a legendary victory against the rival Chanca people, Pachacuti embarked on one of the most ambitious urban renewal projects in history. He didn't just want to expand Cusco, he wanted to rebuild it from the ground up as a symbol of Inca power and a model for the entire empire. Pachacuti's vision was nothing short of breathtaking. He conceived of the city's layout in the shape of a sacred animal, the puma. This powerful predator, a symbol of strength and agility in Andean cosmology, would be immortalized in the very street plan of the capital. The head of the puma was the formidable fortress of Sacsayhuaman, perched on a hill overlooking the city. Its sharp, zigzagging walls are often said to represent the puma's teeth. The body of the great cat was formed by the city itself, with the Tulumayo and Safi rivers channeled to delineate its form, flowing down to meet at the puma's tail, an area known as Pumac. At the heart of the puma, where its belly would be, lay the Wakayap, the Grand Central Plaza, the true nucleus of the empire. This transformation was a monumental undertaking. Pachacuti reportedly had the entire city of engineers and architects drained the marshy ground, canalized the rivers, and laid out a precise grid for the new city. And then came the stonemasons. The Inca were masters of stonework, and in Cusco they perfected their craft. They used a technique called ashlar masonry, where massive stones were quarried and shaped with such incredible precision that they fit together perfectly without any mortars. You could not slip a knife blade between them. These interlocking stones created structures that were not only beautiful but also remarkably earthquake-resistant, a crucial feature in the seismically active Andes. As the city rose, it became a microcosm of the empire itself, a concept known as the CSC system. Cusco was the hub from which imaginary lines, or Sikhs, radiated out across the landscape, connecting hundreds of sacred sites. The city was also divided into two halves, Hanan, Cusco, Upper Cusco, and Hirin, Cusco, Lower Cusco, reflecting the dualistic social structure of Inca society. This organization was then replicated in the provinces, with the entire empire, the realm of the four parts, being spatially and politically oriented toward the capital. The four main roads of the Great Inca Road system all converged on Cusco's central plaza, literally connecting every corner of the empire to its heart. At the spiritual center of this heart was the Coricancia, the Temple of the Sun, originally a modest shrine. Pachacuti rebuilt it into the most sacred and opulent site in the entire empire. Its walls were said to have been covered in sheets of pure gold, reflecting the sunlight and dazzling all who saw it. Inside, a famous golden disc represented the sun god Inti. The temple also housed chapels dedicated to the moon, stars, thunder, and rainbow. Its garden was a surreal spectacle, filled with life-sized sculptures of corn stalks, llamas, and shepherds, all crafted from solid gold and silver. The Coricancia was the ultimate expression of the Inca's reverence for their gods and the divine authority of their ruler. But Cusco wasn't just a religious center. It was the administrative and political brain of the empire. The Sapa Inca resided here in magnificent palaces. Nobles from all over the empire were required to build homes in the capital and live there for part of the year, ensuring their loyalty and integrating them into the imperial culture. The sons of conquered provincial leaders were brought to Cusco to be educated, essentially serving as well-treated hostages who would return to their homelands. The central plaza, the Huaca Yaputa, was the stage for the empire's grandest ceremonies and festivals. It was here that triumphs were celebrated, religious rites were performed, and the mummified bodies of past emperors were brought out on golden litters to witness the proceedings. Imagine the scene. Thousands of people gathered, the Sapa Inca, adorned in fine textiles and gold, priests chanting, and the entire city pulsating with an energy that affirmed its place as the center of the known world. From a small mountain village blessed by a mythical staff to a sprawling puma-shaped metropolis of stone and gold, the rise of Cusco is a testament to the Inca's ambition, engineering, genius, and profound spiritual vision. It was more than just a city. It was the Axis Mundi, the navel of the world, from which the Inca organized their reality and ruled an empire. Its legacy, etched in the stones that still stand today, continues to captivate and inspire. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the sacred capital. In our next chapter, we'll look at the incredible systems the Inca developed to manage their vast empire, from their amazing road network to their unique method of keeping records. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. See you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the annals of history and myth. Today, we venture into the heart of the Andes Mountains, to a time long before the Spanish conquest, a time of gods and legends. We re-exploring one of the most foundational stories of the Inca Empire, the tale of Manco Cápac and Mama Oclo, the children of the sun. Imagine a world shrouded in twilight, a land where humanity lived without order, laws, or the comforts of civilization. They lived in caves, clothed in leaves and animal skins, struggling for survival without knowledge of agriculture or weaving. Seeing the plight of his creation, the great sun god, Inti, felt a deep compassion. He decided that humanity needed guidance, a divine hand to lead them from the darkness into the light of civilization. So, from the sacred, shimmering waters of Lake Titicaca, Inti brought forth his own children, a son, Manco Cápac, and a daughter, Mama Oclo. They emerged from the lake, radiant and divine, carrying the hopes of their father and the future of a people. Inti bestowed upon them a special mission and a sacred artifact, a golden staff, or tapa. Their instructions were clear. They were to travel the land, and wherever the golden staff sank completely into the earth with a single push, there was the divine sign. That was the place where they would build a great city, a capital that would become the center of a new civilization. This city would be a beacon of knowledge, order, and prosperity for all the people of the Andes. Manco Cápac was tasked with teaching the men the arts of civilization. He would show them how to plow the fields, how to plant and harvest crops, how to build irrigation channels to water their farms, and how to construct sturdy homes of stone. He would teach them to be farmers, builders, and organized members of a society. Essentially, he was to bring structure and substance to their lives. Mama Oclo, his sister and wife, had an equally vital role. She was to teach the women the arts of the home and hearth. She would show them how to spin wool from llamas and alpacas into fine thread, how to weave that thread into warm clothing and beautiful textiles, and how to manage a household. Her teachings were about creating comfort, culture, and the fabric of daily life. Together, they would lift humanity from its primitive state. So began their epic journey. Manco Cápac and Mama Oclo set out from the island of the sun and Lake Titicaca, traveling north across the high plains of the Andes. The people they encountered were awestruck, seeing these two figures, adorned in fine garments and radiating an otherworldly aura. They recognized them as divine beings and eagerly followed them, ready to learn. At every place they stopped, Manco Cápac would test the earth with the golden staff. He would tap it on the ground, but time and again, the staff would barely penetrate the hard soil or would simply bounce off the rock. They traveled through valleys and over mountains, patiently searching for the spot chosen by their father Inti. Finally, after a long and arduous journey, they arrived in a beautiful, fertile valley. It was a place nestled between towering green mountains, with a river flowing through its heart. Here Manco Cápac once again took the golden staff and thrust it into the ground. This time, something miraculous happened. Without any effort, the staff sank deep into the rich soil, disappearing completely from sight. This was the sign they had been waiting for. This was the chosen place. The valley was named Cusco, which in the Quichua language means the navel of the earth. It was here that they would found their city and begin their divine mission in earnest. Manco Cápac gathered the men who had followed him. He divided them into two groups: the Hanan Cusco, or Upper Cusco, and the Hurin Cusco, or Lower Cusco. This division formed the basis of the Inca social structure. He taught them how to work the land, build terraces on the hillsides to maximize farmland, and create a community built on cooperation and shared labor. Meanwhile, Mama Aklo gathered the women and taught them the secrets of weaving and cooking. The once untamed people began to transform. They learned to build homes, to wear clothes, and to live in an organized, harmonious society. The foundations of the Inca Empire were laid, not through conquest at first, but through knowledge and divine guidance. Cusco grew from a small settlement into a magnificent city, the heart of a burgeoning empire. Manco Cápac became the first Sapa Inca, the supreme ruler, and his descendants would continue to rule for centuries, expanding the empire across South America, creating the vast and sophisticated civilization we know today as the Inca Empire. This creation story is more than just a myth. It's a powerful narrative that explains the Incas' divine origin, their right to rule, and their cultural values. It emphasizes the importance of the sun god Inti, the sacredness of Lake Titicaca, and the central role of Cusco. As the navel of the world, it also establishes the gender roles and the social structure that were fundamental to Inca life. The story of Manco Cápac and Mama Oklo was the charter for their entire civilization. This legend was passed down through generations, told and retold, ensuring that every Inca understood their place in the cosmos and their connection to the gods. It gave them a shared identity and a sense of destiny. What's fascinating is how this story blends the mythical with the geographical. Lake Titicaca is a real, breathtakingly beautiful place, and Cusco remains a vibrant city. To this day, its ancient stone walls still standing as a testament to the empire Manco Cápac is said to have founded. The legend provides a sacred map, linking the people to their land in a deeply spiritual way. So, as we close this chapter, we see how the Inca world began, not with a bang, but with a journey, a golden staff, and a divine promise. The children of the sun brought light to the Andes, and from the fertile soil of the Cusco Valley, they cultivated one of history's most remarkable empires. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Inca mythology. It's a testament to how stories can build worlds and shape the course of history. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments what other legends you'd like to explore. Until next time, keep seeking the stories that connect us all. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our series on the great empires of history. Today, we journey to the Andes Mountains to meet a figure whose name literally means Earthshaker. He was a visionary, a conqueror, and an architect of empire. This is the story of Pachacuti, Inca Yupanqui, the man who transformed a small kingdom into the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas. Before Pachacuti, the Inca were a regional power, one of many in the rugged Andean highlands. Centered around their capital Cusco, they were a strong people, but their influence was limited. The world around them was a complex tapestry of rival kingdoms and tribes. The stage was set for a dramatic change, but it would take a crisis of existential proportions to forge the legend of Pachacuti. The pivotal moment came around the year 1438. Cusco faced its greatest threat from a powerful neighboring confederation. The Chunka warriors were fierce and were advancing on the Inca capital, seemingly unstoppable. In this moment of crisis, the ruling Inca king, Viracocha, and his designated heir fled the city, believing it to be lost. But one son refused to abandon his people. His name was Cusco Yupanqui, the man who would later be known as Pachacuti. According to Inca oral traditions, Cusco Yupanqui had a powerful vision. He claimed the sun god Inti appeared to him, promising victory and a divine destiny. Filled with newfound resolve, he rallied the remaining warriors and prepared to defend Cusco against overwhelming odds. The battle that followed was legendary. The Inca, inspired by Cusco Yupanqui's courage, fought with ferocious determination. The chronicles even tell of stones on the battlefield magically transforming into warriors to fight. Alongside the Inca, against all expectations, the Inca were victorious. They not only defended Cusco, but utterly crushed the Chunka army. Cusco Yupanqui pursued the retreating enemy, securing a decisive victory that would forever alter the balance of power in the Andes. This legendary triumph was more than just a military win. It was the foundational event of the Inca Empire. Cusco Yupanqui, the savior of Cusco, returned a hero. He deposed his father and brother and took the title of Sapa Inca, the supreme ruler, and he gave himself a new name to match his achievement. Pachacuti, the Earthshaker, or he who overturns space and time. With the Chunka threat eliminated, Pachacuti began an era of unprecedented expansion. He was a brilliant military strategist, but his genius wasn't limited to the battlefield. He understood that building a lasting empire required more than just conquest. He perfected a system of integrating conquered peoples into the Inca state. Often, he would first offer rival lords the chance to submit peacefully. Those who accepted were allowed to retain their positions of local authority, but they had to pledge loyalty to the Sapa Inca, pay tribute, and send their children to Cusco to be educated in Inca ways. This clever use of diplomacy and assimilation minimized bloodshed and turned former enemies into subjects of a growing empire. Of course, not everyone submitted peacefully. For those who resisted, Pachacuti's armies were relentless. The Inca military was a highly organized and disciplined force. They built an extensive network of roads, known as the Capacone, which allowed their armies and messengers to move with incredible speed across the challenging mountain terrain. Along these roads, they constructed storehouses, called cocas, filled with food, clothing, and weapons, ensuring their armies could operate far from home. This logistical mastery was a key pillar of their military success. But Pachacuti's vision went far beyond conquest. He was the great architect of the Inca Empire, both literally and figuratively. He initiated a massive rebuilding program in the capital city of Cusco. He transformed it from a modest settlement into a magnificent imperial city, the navel of the universe. The city was laid out in the shape of a puma, a sacred animal. Great palaces and temples were constructed with the signature Inca stonework, massive, precisely cut stones that fit together so perfectly without mortars that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. The most sacred of these was the Coricancia, the Temple of the Sun, which was said to have been covered in sheets of solid gold. Pachacuti's reforms touched every aspect of Inca life. He reorganized the state religion, solidifying the cult of Inti, the sun god, as the primary state religion, with the Sapa Inca as his living representative on earth. This religious ideology helped unify the diverse peoples of the empire under a single divine authority. He also formalized the system of mita, a form of mandatory public service. Every able-bodied subject was required to work for the state for a certain number of days each year, whether it was farming on state lands, serving in the army, or most famously constructing the incredible roads, bridges, and buildings that defined the empire. This system allowed the Inca to mobilize vast amounts of labor for their monumental projects. Furthermore, Pachacuti is credited with developing the agricultural systems that sustained the empire. He expanded the construction of andines, the terraced fields that climbed the steep mountainsides, which allowed the Inca to farm in seemingly impossible locations. They grew a variety of crops like potatoes, maize, and quinoa, and developed sophisticated irrigation systems to water them. This agricultural surplus, stored in the state's ensured the empire could withstand droughts or famines and feed its armies on the march. Pachacuti's reign, which lasted from about 1438 to 1471, was a period of explosive growth and transformation. He personally led many military campaigns, expanding the empire's borders north into modern-day Ecuador and south into parts of Chile and Argentina. By the end of his rule, the small kingdom of Cusco had become the Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters, a vast, centrally controlled empire, stretching for thousands of miles along the spine of the Andes. He laid the administrative, religious, and physical foundations upon which his successors, like his son, Tupac, Inca Yupanqui, and grandson Huayna Capac, would continue to build. The empire he created was a marvel of engineering and social organization, able to manage a diverse population of millions of people without the use of wheeled vehicles, draft animals, or written language as we know it. Instead, they used the quipu, a complex system of knotted cords, to record data and communicate information. Pachacuti was more than just a conqueror. He was a true earthshaker. His vision and ambition remade the Andean world. He found Cusco on the brink of destruction and left behind a powerful, unified empire that would stand as one of history's most impressive achievements. His legacy is etched in the stones of Machu Picchu, the roads that crisscross the Andes, and the very identity of the Inca people. He is the founding father of the Inca Empire, a ruler whose impact was so profound that history in the Andes is often divided into two eras, before Pachacuti and after. Thank you for joining us on this journey to meet the great empire builder, Pachacuti. His story is a testament to how a single individualist's leadership and vision can change the course of history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the lives of history's most fascinating figures. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the incredible history of the Inca Empire. Today, we're hitting the road. Literally, we're re-diving deep into one of the most astonishing engineering achievements of the ancient world. The Great Inca Road, or as it was known in Quechua, the Capacone. Forget what you think you know about ancient highways. This wasn't just a collection of pads. It was the lifeblood of an empire, a sprawling network of over 25,000 miles of meticulously constructed roads. That's enough to circle the entire Earth. Imagine this, a vast empire, stretching from modern-day Colombia down to Chile, covering some of the most extreme terrains on the planet. You have the scorching Atacama Desert, the dense, humid Amazon jungle, and of course, the colossal Andes Mountains, with peaks that kiss the sky. How do you unite and control such a diverse and challenging landscape? The Incas' answer was the Capacone. This system was the key to their power, a web of stone-paved arteries that carried armies, administrators, goods, and information to every corner of their domain, with breathtaking speed and efficiency. It was more than infrastructure. It was the physical manifestation of imperial control and unity. So, how did they build it? Without the wheel, without iron tools, and without draft animals like horses or oxen? The answer lies in sheer human ingenuity, immense labor, and a profound understanding of their environment. The Inca were masters of adaptation. On steep mountain slopes, they carved staircases directly into the rock, some with thousands of steps. Across swampy lowlands, they built raised causeways to keep the road dry and stable. In the deserts, they marked the path with low stone walls to prevent travelers from getting lost in the shifting sands. The quality of these roads is just astounding. Many sections were paved with carefully fitted stones, a hallmark of Inca masonry. They were built to last, and incredibly, many parts of the Capacone are still visible today, with some even still in use by local communities. The roads were typically between 3 and 13 feet wide, designed for foot traffic and llamas, the empire's trusty pack animals. The engineering was so precise that they incorporated drainage systems, retaining walls, and even tunnels. To navigate the unforgiving landscape, they didn't fight the mountains. They worked with them, creating a harmonious and durable system. One of the most awe-inspiring features of the Inca road system was its suspension bridges. Spanning vast canyons and raging rivers, these bridges were masterpieces of rope engineering, woven from ichugras, a tough Andean plant. Thick cables were anchored to massive stone towers on either side of a gorge. Local communities were responsible for maintaining and replacing the ropes every 1 or 2 years in a communal ceremony that was both a practical necessity and a sacred ritual. These bridges, swaying high above the river below, were a terrifying yet brilliant solution to crossing otherwise impassable natural barriers. They were a true testament to the Incas' collective strength and engineering prowess. But the road system was more than just roads and bridges. Along its entire length, the Inca built a network of support structures. About every 12 to 15 miles, you would find a tambo. These were way stations, essentially ancient motels, providing lodging, food, and supplies for official travelers. They ensured that armies on the move, or government officials on business, were always welcome. Even more frequent were the huts for the chasqui, the legendary messengers of the Inca Empire. The chasqui were the imperial postal service, a relay system of elite runners who could carry messages and small items across the empire at incredible speeds. A young fit chosqui would run a short leg of about 1 to 2 miles to the next hut, blowing a conch shell to announce his arrival. He would pass the message or package to the next runner, who would immediately sprint off. This system was so efficient that a message could travel from the capital, Cusco, to Quito, a distance of over 1,200 miles, in about a week. That's faster than the postal service in Europe at the time. And it was all done on foot. This rapid communication was vital for the emperor to manage his vast territories, respond to rebellions, and receive intelligence. The Cápac wasn't just for official business, though. It was a conduit for economic life. It facilitated the movement of goods from different ecological zones. Part of the Inca system of reciprocity and redistribution, potatoes and quinoa from the highlands, maize and cotton from the valleys, and coca leaves and feathers from the jungle all traveled along these roads, knitting the empire's diverse regions into a single, functioning economic unit. It also served a ceremonial and religious purpose. The roads connected important sacred sites, or wakas, and were often aligned with celestial events. Walking the road was, in many ways, a spiritual act, a journey through a sacred landscape shaped by the gods and the ancestors. The construction and maintenance of this colossal network were made possible through a labor tax system called the Immaite. Every able-bodied man was required to work for the state for a certain period each year, contributing to projects like road building, construction, or serving in the army. It was this organized, massive mobilization of labor that allowed the Inca to undertake such monumental engineering marvels without the technology we often associate with great builders. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they were utterly amazed by the roads. Some even wrote that the roads of the Inca surpassed those of the Roman Empire. Ironically, the very system that held the Inca Empire together also hastened its fall. The Spanish used the roads to move their troops and supplies quickly into the heart of the empire, exploiting this incredible network for their own conquest. After the fall of the Inca, the road system fell into disuse in many areas, though, as we mentioned, parts of it endure, a silent monument to the empire that built it. Today, the Cápac is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a designation that acknowledges its universal value to humanity. It stands as a powerful symbol of the ingenuity, organization, and sheer willpower of the Inca civilization. It reminds us that there are many ways to build an empire, and that sometimes the most sophisticated technology is a deep understanding of nature and the power of human cooperation. These roads across the mountains weren't just routes from one place to another. They were the heart and soul of one of history's greatest empires. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this journey along the Inca roads as fascinating as I do. What part of this engineering marvel impressed you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time. Imagine an empire sprawling across the treacherous Andes Mountains, from modern Colombia to Chile. How did the Inca rulers maintain control over such a vast and rugged territory without written language, horses, or wheels? The answer lies in one of the most remarkable communication systems ever devised, the network of the chasqui messengers. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we re-journeying back in time to the heart of the Inca Empire to uncover the incredible story of the chasqui, the super athletes who were the lifeblood of Inca communication. These weren't just messengers. They were the human internet of their time, connecting a massive empire with speed and precision. So, who were these legendary runners? The Chasqui were chosen from a young age, selected for their exceptional physical fitness, speed, and endurance. They underwent rigorous training to prepare them for the demanding life of a royal messenger. Their job was vital. They carried everything from urgent military orders and administrative reports to fresh fish from the coast for the emperor's stable in the high-altitude capital of Cusco. The secret to their incredible speed wasn't just individual stamina, but a brilliantly organized relay system. The vast Inca road system, known as the Cápac Cone, spanned over 25,000 miles. Along these roads, small relay stations called tambos were built every few miles. The Chasqui would run at top speed from one tambo to the next, covering his segment of the journey. As he approached the next station, he would blow a conch shell trumpet, called a putitu, to alert the next runner that a message was coming. When the two runners met, the message was passed on without a moment's delay. The first runner would shout the oral message to the second runner while running alongside him, ensuring no detail was lost. The fresh runner would then take off at full sprint to the next tambo. This continuous, non-stop relay allowed messages to travel across the empire at an astonishing pace. Historians estimate that a message could travel up to 150 miles in a single day. That's faster than the postal service in Europe at the time. And they were doing it on foot, at altitudes that would leave most of us breathless. Now, you might be wondering, how did they ensure the accuracy of these messages, especially complex ones involving numbers and data? This is where another piece of Inca genius comes in. The quipus were intricate devices made of knotted strings, different colors, types of knots, and the placement of these knots on the strings could record an incredible amount of information. They were used for census data, tracking resources, recording historical events, and managing the empire's vast storehouses. The Chasqui didn't just carry verbal messages. They carried these quipus. A specialized official, known as a quipia kamayak, or kapu keeper, would create the kapu at the source. The Chasqui would then transport this knotted record, and another quipi kamayak at the destination would read and interpret it. It was a sophisticated system of data transmission that bypassed the need for a written alphabet. The Chasqui had to be trustworthy and sworn to secrecy, as the information they carried was often highly sensitive. The punishment for failing in their duty was severe, reflecting the critical importance of their role. Life as a Chasqui was demanding. They had to be ready to run at a moment's notice, day or night, in any weather condition. They ran through scorching coastal deserts, freezing mountain passes, and dense jungles. Their diet was specially designed for high performance, rich in energy-boosting foods like quinoa, maize, and coca leaves, which they chewed to combat fatigue and altitude sickness. Their only equipment was a small bag for their personal items, the putitu, and the precious message, or quipu, they were entrusted with. This system was the backbone of the Inca Empire. It allowed the Sapa Inca, the emperor in Cusco, to deploy troops, manage resources, and receive news from the furthest corners of his domain with unparalleled efficiency. It was a testament to their organizational skills and deep understanding of their environment. The Chasqui weren't just running. They were weaving the fabric of an empire together, one sprint at a time. Sadly, this incredible system fell apart with the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. The roads fell into disrepair, and the network that had bound the empire together was broken. However, the legacy of the Chasqui endures. They represent a pinnacle of human endurance and ingenuity. They show us what's possible when human potential is combined with a brilliant system. Their story reminds us that long before fiber optics and satellites, ancient civilizations found their own remarkable ways to conquer distance and time. The spirit of the Chasqui lives on. Today, some long-distance races in Peru follow parts of the ancient Inca Trail, honoring the memory of these elite runners. They are a powerful symbol of dedication, resilience, and the enduring human need to connect. What do you think is the most impressive part of the Chasqui system? The speed, the quipus, or the sheer endurance of the runners? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories from history. We'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to our journey through the incredible Inca Empire. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of power, faith, and gold to uncover the story of the most powerful man in the Andes, the Sapa Inca. He wasn't just a king or an emperor. He was considered a living god, the son of the sun itself. Let's explore how this divine kingship shaped an entire civilization. The term Sapa, Inca, literally means the only Inca, or the unique Inca. This title wasn't just a claim to political authority, it was a statement of divine origin. According to Inca mythology, the sun god Inti was the supreme deity and the source of all life. The first Sapa Inca, Manco Cápac, was believed to have been sent to Earth by his father Inti to bring civilization to humanity. He and his sister wife, Mama Oclo, emerged from the waters of Lake Titicaca, carrying a golden staff. Their divine mission was to find a place where the staff would sink into the ground, and there they would found a great city. That place became Cusco, the sacred capital of the Inca Empire. This origin story was the bedrock of the Sapa Inca's power. Every emperor who followed Manco Cápac inherited this divine lineage. He was seen as a direct link between the heavens and the earth, a conduit for divine will. His word was law, not just because he had an army, but because his commands were seen as the commands of a god. Disobeying the Sapa Inca was not just treason, it was sacrilege, a sin against the natural order of the cosmos. This belief created an incredible sense of unity and obedience throughout the vast empire, a territory that stretched for thousands of miles. The people, from the highest noble to the humblest farmer, understood their place in a universe governed by the divine will of their emperor. The life of the Sapa Inca was a continuous performance of his divinity. Everything about him was designed to reinforce his sacred status. He was carried everywhere on a magnificent golden litter, or throne, adorned with parrot feathers and precious metals. His feet were considered too sacred to touch the common earth. Anyone who approached him had to do so with a bowed head and a symbolic burden on their back to show their humility before his divine presence. Even the highest-ranking nobles couldn't look him directly in the eye. His clothes were woven from the finest vicuna wool, so soft and delicate that he was said to wear an outfit only once before it was ritually burned. He ate from gold and silver plates and drank from golden cups. Every object he touched became a sacred relic, imbued with his divine essence. This cult of personality was centered in the magnificent city of Cusco. At the heart of the capital was the Coricancia, the Temple of the Sun. This wasn't just any temple. It was the most sacred shrine in the entire empire and a dazzling testament to the Sapa Inca's power. The name Coricancia means golden courtyard in Quechua, and it lived up to its name. Chroniclers who saw it describe walls lined with sheets of pure gold that reflected the sunlight, making the entire complex glow with a divine radiance. Inside, there was a great golden disk representing Inti, positioned so that the morning sun would illuminate it and fill the chamber with light. But the most incredible feature was the golden garden. Here, everything you would find in a real garden was recreated in solid gold and silver. There were life-sized maize plants with silver stalks and golden cobs. There were golden llamas, shepherds, birds, and even butterflies, all crafted with stunning realism. This wasn't just for decoration. This garden symbolized the Sapa Inca's control over the natural world and the prosperity that his divine rule brought to the land. It was a permanent, unchanging representation of the bounty of the empire, made from the very substance of the sun god. Considerate sweat of the sun. Rituals were the lifeblood of the empire, constantly reaffirming the Sapa Inca's connection to the divine. The most important of these was the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, held during the winter solstice in June. This was a 9-day celebration to honor the sun god and ensure his return, bringing warmth and life back to the world. The Sapa Inca himself presided over the ceremony. On the main day, he would appear in the central plaza of Cusco at dawn, dressed in his most spectacular regalia. As the sun rose, he would raise a golden cup of chicha, or fermented corn beer, toasting his father, the sun. He would then pour the chicha into a golden channel that flowed to the Coricancia, a direct offering to the god. This festival involved massive processions, music, dancing, and grand feasts for the entire population of Cusco. A key part of the ritual was the sacrifice of a pure white llama. The high priest would read the future of the empire in the animal's entrails, and its heart would be offered to Inti. These rituals were not just religious observances. They were powerful political tools. By leading the Inti Raymi, the Sapa Inca publicly demonstrated his unique relationship with the sun god, reinforcing his right to rule and ensuring the continued well-being of his people. He was a spectacle that left no doubt in anyone's mind about who was in charge and why. Even in death, the Sapa Inca's divine status continued. When an emperor died, his body was carefully mummified. These mummies, known as malquas, were not seen as dead relics, but as living entities. They remained in their palaces, attended by servants who would feed them, dress them, and consult them on important matters. They were brought out on their litters for major ceremonies and festivals, seated alongside the living Sapa Inca. They continued to own their vast estates and command the loyalty of their lineage group, or Pano. This created a fascinating and complex political landscape, where the dead held as much influence as the living. The new Sapa Inca had to build his own power and wealth, as he couldn't inherit from his predecessor. This is one theory for why the empire expanded so rapidly. Each new emperor needed to conquer new lands to secure his own legacy and resources. The Sapa Inca was more than just a ruler. He was the divine axis around which the entire Inca world revolved. His supposed lineage from the sun god Inti gave him absolute authority, an authority that was displayed in every aspect of his life, from the golden temples he built to the sacred rituals he performed. He was the embodiment of the state, the shepherd of his people, and the living son of the sun. This profound belief system was the glue that held one of history's most remarkable empires together. Thanks for watching. If you found this glimpse into the divine world of the Sapa Inca fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into ancient history. Let us know in the comments what you think about this system of divine kingship. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on ancient civilizations. Today, we rejourney high into the Andes Mountains to explore one of history's greatest engineering marvels, the Inca Empire. How did a civilization without the wheel, without iron tools, and without a written language build an empire that stretched for thousands of miles through some of the world's most challenging terrain? The answer lies in their incredible ingenuity and a profound understanding of their environment. This is Chapter 9. Engineering the Impossible. Let's start with the very foundation of the empire. Food. The Andes are steep, rugged, and not exactly ideal for farming. So, how did the Incas feed millions of people? They sculpted the mountains themselves. They built vast systems of agricultural terraces, or andines, which are massive steps carved into the hillsides. These weren't just simple dirt ledges. Each terrace was a sophisticated, multi-layered structure. The base layer was filled with large stones for drainage, followed by a layer of gravel and sand, and finally topped with rich topsoil, often carried up from the valleys below. This design prevented soil erosion from heavy rains, maximized sunlight exposure, and created microclimates that allowed them to grow a variety of crops, like potatoes, maize, and quinoa, at different altitudes. It was a brilliant solution that transformed steep, unusable slopes into fertile farmland. But crops need water, and in the Andes, water can be scarce or unpredictable. This is where the Incas' mastery of hydraulic engineering comes into play. They constructed thousands of miles of canals and aqueducts, some stretching for incredible distances. These weren't just ditches. They were precisely engineered channels, often lined with stone, that followed the contours of the mountains. They tapped into mountain springs and rivers, carefully managing the flow of water with an average gradient of about 3% to ensure a steady, non-erosive current. This network of channels delivered fresh water not only to their agricultural terraces but also to their cities for drinking, bathing, and religious rituals. The precision is astounding. Even today, many of these ancient Inca canals are still in use by local communities, a testament to their enduring design. Now, let's talk about their cities. The Incas built cities in places that seemed downright impossible, clinging to mountain ridges and nestled in high valleys. Think of the iconic Machu Picchu, perched nearly 8,000 feet above sea level. Building such a city required moving millions of tons of stone without draft animals or wheeled vehicles. So how did they do it? It was a massive community effort. Using ramps, log rollers, and immense manpower, they quarried and transported enormous stone blocks, sometimes weighing over 100 tons, across miles of treacherous terrain. It was a triumph of human organization and sheer determination. But the most mind-boggling aspect of Inca construction is their stonework. If you look closely at the walls of Cusco or Machu Picchu, you'll see something astonishing. There's no mortar holding the stones together. Instead, the Incas perfected a technique of shaping and fitting stones so perfectly that you can't even slip a knife blade between them. This is known as ashlar masonry. They used simple tools, like harder river stones and bronze chisels, to painstakingly pound, grind, and polish each block to fit its neighbors. The stones often have multiple corners, fitting together like a complex three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Why go to all this trouble? The Andes is a seismically active region, prone to frequent earthquakes. A rigid, mortared wall would crack and collapse during a tremor. But the Incas' mortarless walls are flexible. During an earthquake, the stones can dance or move slightly, absorbing the seismic energy, and then settle back into their original positions once the shaking stops. This earthquake-resistant design is why so many Inca structures have survived for over 500 years, while later colonial buildings built right on top of them have crumbled. Consider the famous 12-angled stone in a wall in Cusco. It's not a show of artistic flair. It's a masterpiece of structural engineering. Each angle locks the stone into its neighbors, distributing weight and stress across the entire wall, making it incredibly stable. They also used other techniques, like cutting the base of the walls wider than the top and tilting them slightly inward, which further enhanced their stability against earthquakes. They would also often key the cornerstones together, locking the walls in place. It's a system of beautiful, functional, and incredibly resilient architecture that was perfectly adapted to its environment. The Inca road system, the Cápac, was another engineer feat. This network spanned over 25,000 miles, connecting the entire empire from modern-day Colombia to Chile. It crossed deserts, high mountain passes, and dense jungles. The roads were meticulously planned and constructed. They built causeways across wetlands, carved stairways up steep cliffs, and constructed remarkable suspension bridges across deep canyons. These bridges were made from woven ichu grass fibers, twisted into massive cables as thick as a human torso. The local communities were responsible for maintaining their section of the bridge, replacing the cables every year or two. These bridges were strong enough to hold people and pack llamas, providing vital links for armies, messengers, and trade. The Spanish conquistadors were terrified to cross them, but they were a cornerstone of Inca communication and control. In every aspect of their world, from farming to building to travel, the Incas demonstrated an incredible ability to engineer solutions for the challenges of their environment. They didn't fight against nature. They worked with it, harmonizing their creations with the landscape. Their terraces followed the curves of the mountains. Their canals followed the flow of water, and their cities seemed to grow organically from the stone. This deep connection to the Pachamama, or Mother Earth, was central to their worldview and is reflected in the enduring legacy they left behind. The Inca engineers may not have had the technology we associate with great builders, but they had something perhaps more powerful. A deep practical knowledge of physics, geology, and hydraulics, combined with extraordinary social organization and a vision to build for eternity. Their work stands today not as ruins of a lost empire, but as living proof of what humanity can achieve when it works in harmony with its environment. It's a lesson in sustainability and resilience that still resonates with us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Inca engineering. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more journeys into history. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. Let me know in the comments which ancient engineering marvel you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the wonders of the ancient world. Today, we ascend into the clouds, to a place that remained hidden from the world for centuries. This is Chapter 10, Machu Picchu, The Lost Citadel. Imagine waking up to the sight of jagged green peaks piercing through a blanket of mist. You're standing nearly 8,000 feet above sea level in the Andes Mountains of Peru. Before you lies a breathtaking city of stone, an engineering marvel that defies explanation. This is Machu Picchu, the most iconic symbol of the great Inca Empire. For centuries, this magnificent citadel was a secret, known only to a few local communities living deep within the Urubamba River Valley. It wasn't until 1911, when American historian Hiram Bingham was led here by a local guide, that the world learned of its existence. He called it the Lost City of the Incas, and the name stuck. But what was this incredible place, and why was it built in such a remote, inaccessible location? Let's explore the city itself. Machu Picchu is a masterpiece of landscape engineering. The Incas were masters of stonework, and you can see it everywhere. They used a technique called ashlar, where they cut stones to fit so tightly together that not even a knife blade can slip between them. And they did this without more. The precision is so perfect that these structures have withstood centuries of earthquakes and harsh weather. The city is divided into two main sectors: the agricultural area and the urban area. The agricultural sector is a stunning display of terracing. These terraces, or andines, aren't just for looks. They were a sophisticated farming system, creating microclimates for growing crops like maize and potatoes. They also prevented soil erosion and landslides on the steep mountainsides. Pure genius. It's estimated that these terraces could feed the entire population of the citadel. Now, let's walk into the urban sector. This is where the magic truly unfolds. We find plazas, homes, and temples, all interconnected by stone staircases. There are over 3,000 steps in Machu Picchu. One of the most sacred spots is the Temple of the Sun. This semicircular tower is a testament to the Incas' astronomical knowledge. During the June solstice, the rising sun shines directly through one of its windows, illuminating a sacred stone within. It's a perfect solar calendar, marking the start of a new agricultural cycle. Nearby is the Intihuatana, which translates to the hitching post of the sun. This intricately carved pillar is one of the most mysterious objects in Machu Picchu. It's believed to have been used as an astronomical clock or calendar, precisely tracking the solstices. And the Incas revered the sun god Inti, and this stone was their sacred connection to him. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Peru, they systematically destroyed these Intihuatana stones wherever they found them, seeing them as symbols of a pagan religion. The one at Machu Picchu is one of the very few that survived intact, likely because the Spanish never found the city. Another fascinating area is the Room of the Three Windows. These three trapezoidal windows perfectly frame the mountains beyond. According to Incan mythology, their founding ancestors emerged from 3 caves, and it's believed these windows symbolize that origin story. The view from here is simply breathtaking, connecting the man-made structure with the divine natural world. But the biggest mystery of all remains. Why was Machu Picchu built? Its purpose is still debated by historians and archaeologists. One popular theory is that it was a royal estate, a secluded mountain retreat for the Inca Emperor who ruled in the mid-15th century. It would have been a place for him and his court to relax, hunt, and perform religious ceremonies away from the bustling capital of Cusco. Think of it as an ancient Camp David, but on a much grander scale. Another theory suggests it was a sacred religious center. Its location, surrounded by holy mountains, or apis, and its numerous temples and shrines point to a deep spiritual significance. It could have been a place of pilgrimage, a university for studying astronomy and other sciences, or even a sanctuary for the Virgins of the Sun, chosen women who served the Inca god. What we do know is that it was a thriving community. It's estimated that around 750 to 1,000 people lived here, including the emperor's retinue, priests, artisans, and farmers. Yet, just about a century after it was built, it was mysteriously abandoned. Why? The most likely reason is the fall of the Inca Empire. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1530s, disease and war ripped through the empire. Machu Picchu, though never discovered by the Spanish, was likely cut off from its supply lines, and its people may have succumbed to disease or simply left to join the resistance or return to their home communities. The jungle then slowly reclaimed the city, hiding it under a thick green blanket for the next 400 years. Today, Machu Picchu is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its protection is a global priority. Walking through its silent streets, you can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. You can feel the energy of the people who lived here, their connection to the sun, the mountains, and the earth. It's a place that asks more questions than it answers, a stone puzzle perched in the sky. Machu Picchu is not just a collection of old ruins. It's a testament to the ingenuity, spirituality, and resilience of the Inca civilization. It's a reminder that even the greatest empires can fall, but their legacy can endure. Carved into the very mountains themselves, it teaches us about a culture that lived in harmony with nature, seeing the divine in the world around them. As we stand here, looking out over the sprawling citadel with the Urubamba River snaking far below, we're left with a profound sense of humility. We are visitors in a place that holds 1,000 secrets, a lost city that has found its way back into the heart of history. It tests a journey that challenges our understanding of the past and inspires us to continue exploring the mysteries it left behind. Thank you for joining me on this ascent to the lost citadel of Machu Picchu. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the heart of the Inca Empire. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the Inca Empire. Last time, we explored the grand structures and political might of this incredible civilization. But what was it like to actually live there? Today, we're stepping away from the emperors and generals to witness the rhythm of daily life for the ordinary people who were the true heart of the empire. Imagine waking up before sunrise, the cool Andean air crisp on your cheeks. For the vast majority of the Inca population, the day began and ended with the earth. Agriculture wasn't just a job. It was a sacred duty, a way of life deeply woven into their cosmology. The empire was a vertical world, stretching from humid lowlands to windswept highlands, and the Inca were masters of this diverse landscape. Their agricultural genius is most famously seen in the stunning terraces, or Andenes, that still carve the mountainsides of Peru today. These weren't just for looks. Each level created a unique microclimate, allowing them to grow an astonishing variety of crops. Down in the warmer valleys, they cultivated maize, a sacred grain used for food, chicha beer, and religious ceremonies. As you ascended, you'd find fields of potatoes, hundreds of varieties, in all shapes and colors, freeze-dried into chuno to last 4 years. And higher still, in the Altiplano, grew the superfood of today, quinoa, a staple that fueled the empire. A farmer's life was one of community. The basic social unit was the Elu, a group of related families who worked the land together. They didn't own the land in our sense. Instead, it was assigned to them by the state. They worked their community plot, but also dedicated time to cultivating lands for the Sapa Inca and for the sun god. Inti, this labor tax, known as the meta, was how the empire built its incredible roads, temples, and stores. It was a system of reciprocity. You give your labor, and the empire provides security, food in times of famine, and infrastructure. Let's follow a family through their day. After a simple breakfast, perhaps of boiled potatoes or quinoa porridge, the men and women would head to the fields. They used simple but effective tools, like the chacuitacla, a foot plow perfect for the steep terrain. It was hard work, but it was communal. People would sing and chant as they worked, turning labor into a social activity. Children would help out, scaring away birds or carrying water, learning the ways of the land from a young age. Meanwhile, back in their simple stone or adobe home, other tasks were underway. The home itself was practical, usually a single room with a thatched roof, often without windows to keep the warmth in. Inside, a woman might be at her backstrap loom. Weaving was a highly respected art form, and Inca textiles were extraordinary, using wool from llamas and the incredibly soft fleece of alpacas. They created fabrics vibrant, with color, and intricate, with geometric patterns. These patterns, kapu, might have acted as a form of communication, indicating a person's status or ethnic group. Clothing was simple tunics for men, long dresses for women, both held in place by woven belts, but the quality and design of the fabric spoke volumes. As the sun began to dip behind the mountain peaks, the families would return from the fields. The evening meal would be cooking over a central fire, the smoke escaping through the thatch. This was a time for family. Grandparents, parents, and children would gather, sharing food and stories. With no written language for everyday use, oral tradition was everything. Elders would recount the great myths of creation, the tales of heroic emperors, and the histories of their own elu. They told stories of the mountain spirits, the Apis, who watched over them, and of Pachamama, the earth's mother, who gave them life. Under a canopy of brilliant stars, undimmed by modern lights, children would listen, their imaginations filled with gods and talking animals. These stories weren't just entertainment. They were the glue that held their culture together, passing down values, history, and a sense of place from one generation to the next. They learned that everything was interconnected to people, the land, the gods, and the stars above. Life wasn't all work, of course. The Inca calendar was full of religious festivals and ceremonies tied to the agricultural cycle. These were times of great celebration, with feasting, music, and dancing. Chicha, the fermented corn beer, would flow freely, and the community would come together to honor the gods and give thanks for the harvest. These festivals were a vital release, reinforcing social bonds and reaffirming their connection to the divine. From the farmer tending his quinoa in the high Andes, to the weaver creating patterns that told a story, life in the Inca Empire was a tapestry woven from threads of hard work, community, and deep spiritual belief. It was a life governed by the seasons, ruled by a powerful state, but lived with a profound connection to the earth and to each other. It's a world away from ours, yet the echoes of their lives in the terraces on the mountains, the textiles and museums, and the stories still told by their descendants continue to resonate today. Thank you so much for joining me on this glimpse into Inca daily life. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters in our exploration of this amazing civilization. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the incredible Inca Empire. Today, we're diving into Chapter 12, the Mita system, a concept that completely redefines our modern understanding of taxes and labor. Imagine a society without money, where your contribution to the state wasn't paid in currency, but in your time and effort. That's the Mita system in a nutshell, and it was the very engine that powered one of the most powerful empires in history. So, how did it work? The Inca Empire was a marvel of organization, and its economy was no different. Instead of collecting gold or silver as taxes, the Sapa Inca, the emperor, required his subjects to perform mandatory public service. This wasn't just random work, it was a highly structured system called the Mita. The word Mita in the Quechua language means a turn or a season, which perfectly describes how it functioned. Communities would take turns sending a portion of their able-bodied men to work on state projects for a specific period each year, typically a few months. Think of it as a form of rotational labor draft. Every community, or elu, was responsible for contributing. Local officials, known as Caracas, would keep detailed records using quipusthos, intricate knotted strings we talked about earlier to track who had served, for how long, and when their turn was up. This ensured the system was fair and that the burden was shared across the entire empire. It was a duty, a civic responsibility that every healthy adult male owed to the state. It was seen not as a burden, but as a way to contribute to the collective good of the Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. What kind of work did they do? The scale and scope of the Mita projects were absolutely staggering. Mita laborers were the ones who built the legendary Inca road system, the Capacon, which stretched for over 25,000 miles, connecting every corner of the empire. They constructed the magnificent temples that dotted the landscape, like the Coricancia in Cusco, sheathed in gold. They built massive fortresses, like the formidable set, with its stones so perfectly fitted you can't slide a knife blade between them. But it wasn't just about grand monuments. The Mita system was also fundamental to the empire's agricultural success. Laborers were deployed to build and maintain the incredible agricultural terraces, or Andeans, that climbed the steep Andean mountainsides. These terraces prevented erosion, maximized sunlight, and created microclimates that allowed the Incas to grow a huge variety of crops, from potatoes and maize to quinoa. They also dug irrigation canals that turned arid landscapes into fertile fields. This agricultural infrastructure was crucial for feeding a population that numbered in the millions. Without the mita, the Inca food supply system simply wouldn't have been possible. The mita system extended to other essential services too. Some laborers were sent to work in the mines, extracting the gold and silver that were considered the sweat of the sun and the tears of the moon. These precious metals weren't used as currency, but for religious objects and ornamentation for the elite. Others served as messengers, or shaski, running in relays along the Inca roads to deliver messages with incredible speed. Some were even conscripted into the army to expand or defend the empire's borders. It was a comprehensive system that touched every aspect of public life. Now, you might be thinking this sounds a bit like slavery, but there were crucial differences. First, the mita was temporary. After completing their term of service, laborers returned to their communities and their own farms. They weren't owned by the state. Second, the state had a reciprocal obligation. This is a key concept in Andean society known as aini, or reciprocity. While the citizens provided labor, the state, in return, provided for them. During their service, the state fed, clothed, and housed the mita laborers. It also provided feasts and coca leaves, which were important for social and ritual purposes. Furthermore, the state maintained massive storehouses, called kulkas, filled with food, textiles, and other goods. These weren't just for the elite. They were a form of social security. In times of famine, drought, or natural disaster, the state would distribute these goods to the affected communities. So, while you were building a road for the emperor, you were also contributing to a system that would support your family and community in times of need. The surplus generated by the mita system wasn't just hoarded, it was redistributed, creating a powerful bond of loyalty and dependence between the people and the state. This system of communal labor and reciprocity created a society that was profoundly different from our own. It fostered a strong sense of community and collective identity. The grand temples and roads weren't just projects of the Sapa Inca. They were built by the people, for the good of the entire empire. Everyone had a role to play in this grand cosmic and social order. Your labor wasn't just work. It was a sacred duty, a way of maintaining the balance and harmony of the universe. However, the system wasn't perfect. It was demanding, and the work, especially in the mines, could be incredibly dangerous. When the Spanish arrived, they saw the mita system and twisted it for their own purposes. They kept the structure of forced labor, but stripped away the reciprocity. The Spanish meta, particularly in the silver mines of Potosi, became a brutal system of exploitation that led to the deaths of countless indigenous people. They took the Inca concept of a duty to the community and turned it into a death sentence for profit. Understanding the original Inca mita is essential to grasping the genius of their societal organization. It was an economic system built not on wealth and currency, but on human energy, duty, and a profound sense of communal responsibility. It allowed the Incas to achieve incredible feats of engineering and agriculture without the use of money, the wheel, or even a formal writing system. It was the backbone of their empire, a testament to what a society can achieve when everyone works together for a common goal. The mita system shows us a different way of thinking about economics and society. It challenges our assumptions about taxes, labor, and the role of the state. It was a system of labor as duty, where every individual's contribution was woven into the magnificent fabric of the Inca world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mita system. It's a complex but fascinating topic that reveals so much about the Inca worldview. What do you think about this system? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter on the incredible Inca civilization. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of ancient empires. Today, we venture into the shimmering core of the Inca world, to a place where gold wasn't just a metal, but the very sweat of the sun itself. We're exploring the legendary Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun in Cusco. Imagine standing in the capital of the vast Inca Empire, surrounded by towering Andes peaks. At the city's spiritual center lies a structure that gleams with an almost divine light. This is the Coricancha, which in the Quechua language means golden courtyard, and it lived up to its name in every conceivable way. The Coricancha wasn't just a temple. It was the nexus of the Inca cosmos, the most sacred site in their entire empire. Its importance cannot be overstated. It was from here that the conceptual sec lines, a system of spiritual pathways, radiated out to connect hundreds of sacred sites, or huacas, across the landscape, binding the empire together in a web of religious and political power. When the Spanish conquistadors first arrived in Cusco in the 1530s, they were utterly astounded by what they found. The descriptions they left behind paint a picture of almost unbelievable opulence. The temple complex was a masterpiece of Inca masonry. Its stone walls were built with perfectly fitted, massive blocks, a technique so precise that not even a knife blade could be slipped between them. This incredible stonework, a hallmark of Inca architecture, was designed to withstand the powerful earthquakes common to the region. But what truly left the Spanish speechless was the gold. The exterior walls of the main temple, dedicated to Inti, the sun god, were covered with enormous plates of pure, solid gold. When the sun struck these walls, the entire temple would blaze with a brilliant, blinding light, appearing as a man-made sun on earth. It was a tangible representation of their most powerful deity. Stepping inside, the spectacle continued. The interior walls were also lined with sheets of hammered gold. The main chamber featured a massive golden disc, intricately designed to represent the face of the sun god. This disc was positioned perfectly to catch the first rays of the morning sun, illuminating the entire sanctuary with a warm, golden glow. It was a daily ritual, a reaffirmation of the sun's life-giving power and the Inca emperor's divine connection to it. The Coricancha was more than just a single building. It was a complex of shrines dedicated to the most important deities in the Inca pantheon. Next to the Temple of the Sun stood the Temple of the Moon, its divine counterpart. Where the Sun Temple was clad in gold, the Moon Temple was adorned with sheets of pure silver, a metal the Inca associated with the tears of the moon. Inside, a large silver disc represented the moon goddess, Mama Kila, the wife of Inti. There were also shrines for Venus, the Pleiades star cluster, and other celestial bodies, each with their own specific religious significance and precious metal adornments. Another shrine was dedicated to the rainbow, or Kichi, which the Inca believed was a servant of the sun and moon. This chapel was painted with a great arc of color across its walls. Yet another was for Alapa, the god of thunder, lightning, and rain, a crucial deity for an agricultural society. Perhaps the most breathtaking feature of the entire complex was the Golden Garden. This wasn't a garden of living plants, but a courtyard filled with life-sized representations of the natural world, all crafted from solid gold and silver. Imagine corn stalks with leaves of silver and ears of golden corn, fields of quinoa, llamas with their herders, birds, butterflies, and even snakes, all meticulously sculpted from precious metals. This garden was a testament to the Inca's reverence for the natural world and a stunning display of their immense wealth and artistic skill. It was an offering to the gods, a perfect, unchanging vision of the fertile world they provided. Life in the Coricancha was dictated by the celestial calendar. The temple was home to a dedicated priesthood, led by the Vilakamu, the high priest of the sun, who was often a close relative of the Sapa Inca, the emperor. These priests were astronomers, observing the movements of the sun, moon, and stars to determine the correct times for planting, harvesting, and major religious festivals. The most important of these festivals were tied to the solstices. The winter solstice in June marked the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun. This was the most significant event in the Inca calendar. For days, the empire would celebrate the return of the sun from its lowest point in the sky. The Sapa Inca himself would preside over the ceremonies, which began at the Coricancha at dawn on the day of the solstice. The emperor, his nobles, and a massive procession of people would gather in the main plaza of Cusco. In complete silence, they would wait for the sun to rise. As the first rays appeared over the mountains, the crowd would greet it with cries of joy and reverence. The Sapa Inca would offer a toast to the sun with chicha, a sacred corn beer, from a golden cup. The celebration involved elaborate rituals, vibrant music, and grand feasts. One of the central rites was the sacrifice of a pure white llama at the Coricancia. Its organs would be examined by the priests to foretell the future of the empire for the coming year. The ceremony was a powerful renewal of the covenant between the Inca people, their emperor, and their divine ancestor, the sun. It ensured the sun would continue its journey, bringing light and warmth and guaranteeing a bountiful harvest. The summer solstice in December was also celebrated with a major festival known as Remi. This was a coming-of-age ceremony for the young nobles of the empire, a time of tests of strength and courage, marking their transition into manhood and their future roles as leaders and warriors. These rituals, too, were deeply connected to the sun and the sacred space of the Coricancia. The fate of the Coricancia is a tragic chapter in its history. When the Spanish conquered Cusco, they were driven by an insatiable hunger for gold. They stripped the temple of its precious metal plates and artworks. The magnificent golden garden was melted down into ingots and shipped back to Spain, its artistic and cultural value destroyed forever. The weight of gold and silver recorded by the Spanish was astronomical, representing a vast fortune that funded the Spanish crown for years. On the foundations of this sacred Inca temple, the conquerors built a new place of worship, the Church of Santo Domingo. For centuries, the magnificent Inca stonework was hidden beneath the colonial structure. It was a symbolic act, an attempt to superimpose a new religion and a new world order over the old one. But the spirit of the Coricancia could not be entirely erased. In 1950, a massive earthquake struck Cusco, devastating much of the city, including large parts of the Santo Domingo Church. In a moment of incredible historical irony, the earthquake revealed what lay beneath. The sturdy anti-seismic Inca walls of the Coricancia had withstood the tremor, emerging from the rubble of the collapsed colonial building. Today, visitors to Cusco can witness this striking juxtaposition of two worlds. You can see the perfectly crafted Inca stonework forming the base for the Dominican convent built on top. It stands as a powerful, physical reminder of the collision of cultures and the enduring legacy of the Inca Empire. While the gold is gone, the stones remain, whispering stories of a time when the sun was worshipped in a temple that shone just as brightly. The Coricancia is more than a ruin. It's a testament to the astronomical knowledge, architectural genius, and deep spiritual reverence of the Inca people. It remains the sacred heart of Cusco, a place where you can still feel the profound connection between humanity, the earth, and the stars. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the temples of gold and fire. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter into the ancient world. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of the Inca Empire. Today, in Chapter 14, we step away from the stone cities and royal courts to immerse ourselves in the very soul of the Andean world. Its festivals and sacred rituals. This is where the cosmos touched the earth, where the divine and the human danced together in a vibrant celebration of life, gratitude, and cosmic balance. The Inca calendar was not just a measure of time. It was a script for a year-long cycle of ceremony. Each month had its own festivals, its own rituals, each one tying the community closer to the gods, to Sapa Inca, and the land itself. These were not mere holidays. They were the spiritual engine of the empire, moments when the supernatural world became tangible, visible in the swirl of colorful textiles, audible in the rhythm of drums and the chant of prayers. Imagine the city of Cusco, the navel of the world, preparing for its most magnificent ceremony. The Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun. This was the grandest of all Inca festivals, held during the winter solstice in June to honor and plead with Inti, the sun god, to return and shorten the long, dark nights. Preparations would begin weeks in advance. The empire's finest weavers would craft new, exquisite garments for the Sapa Inca and the high priests from every corner of the Tawantinsuyo. Representatives, nobles, and commoners would make the pilgrimage to the capital, their hearts filled with anticipation. The city would swell, a vibrant tapestry of different ethnicities, languages, and customs, all united under the banner of the sun. On the day of the festival, a profound silence would fall over Cusco just before dawn. The Sapa Inca, adorned in gold that shimmered like the sun itself, would lead a procession to the Hokaipata, the great central plaza. As the first rays of sunlight crested the eastern mountains, a great cry of jubilation would erupt from the thousands gathered. The Sapa Inca would raise 2 golden cups filled with chicha, a sacred corn brew. The cup in his right hand, a tribute to his divine father, he would pour into a golden channel leading directly to the Corican, the temple of the sun. The cup in his left, he would share with his family, reinforcing the sacred bond between the ruling Inca and the divine. The festival was a spectacle of sound and color. Priests would read the future in the patterns of coca leaves and the entrails of a sacrificed llama, seeking omens for the coming year's harvest and the health of the empire. Massive bonfires were lit, their flames dancing towards the heavens, symbolizing the people's desire to give warmth and strength back to the weakening sun. For 9 days, Cusco would be alive with feasting, dancing, and music. The air would be thick with the sound of panpipes, the beat of drums, and the voices of 1,000 chanters. It was a reaffirmation of the cosmic order, a promise between the sun and his children, ensuring light, warmth, and life for another year. But the sun was not the only deity to be honored. Perhaps even more intimately woven into the daily life of every Andean person was the reverence for Pachamama, the Earth Mother. She was the sustainer of all life, the ground beneath their feet, the source of the crops that fed them. Her worship wasn't confined to grand temples. It was practiced in every field, in every home, with every meal. The harvest festivals were a testament to this deep connection. After months of careful cultivation on Annie-work terraces, the time would come to gather the bounty of corn, potatoes, and quinoa. This was a time of joyous celebration, but also of profound gratitude. Before the first potato was pulled from the earth, a farmer would pause. He would select the finest coca leaves, a small offering of chicha, and perhaps a beautifully woven textile. He would dig a small hole, a mouth for the earth, and gently place his offerings inside, whispering prayers of thanks to Thank you, Mother, for this food. Thank you for sustaining my family. Tea's ritual, known as apagua la tierra, or payment to the earth, was a fundamental part of the Andean worldview of Ani, or sacred reciprocity. You do not simply take from the earth, you give back, you maintain a balance. This wasn't just a spiritual belief. It was a practical ecological wisdom that ensured the long-term fertility of the land. They understood that the earth was a living being, one that could be exhausted if not cared for and respected. Every planting season began with similar rituals, asking Pachamama for her permission and blessing to sow the seeds. These offerings were not always simple. In times of great drought, famine, or crisis, the community might come together for a larger ceremony. A perfectly white llama, a sacred animal, might be sacrificed, its blood returned to the earth to quench Pachamama's thirst and restore balance. These acts, seen through our modern lens, can seem strange, but for the Inca, they were a vital part of a sacred conversation with the living world around them. And then there were the Apis, the great mountain spirits, Akucha. These weren't distant gods. They were the colossal, snow-capped peaks that dominated the horizon. Each mountain was a specific, powerful entity, a protector of the local community. Travelers crossing a high pass would leave a small stone as a token of respect, creating a cairn, or a pachita. Over centuries, they would offer coca leaves to the Apu, asking for safe passage and strength. The mountains were the source of water, the controllers of weather, and their formidable presence was a constant reminder of nature's power. Honoring the Apis was as crucial as honoring the sun or the earth. Music and dance were the languages of these rituals. The hypnotic melodies of the quina and the saik, or panpipe, would fill the air, their notes echoing the wind whistling through the high Andes. Dancers, adorned in masks and costumes representing animals, spirits, or historical figures, would move in unison, their steps stomping a rhythm into the very earth they were honoring. These were not performances for an audience. They were acts of communal prayer, a way for the entire community to participate in the sacred dialogue. Arche moment each note had meaning, telling stories of creation, of divine battles, and of the cycles of the seasons. Through these festivals, the Inca rewove the fabric of their society year after year. The Inti Raymi reinforced the Sapa Incas' divine authority. The harvest rituals solidified the community's bond with the land and with each other. The offerings to the Apis maintained respect for the wild, powerful forces of nature. It was a world where the sacred was not separate from the everyday. It was in the planting of a seed, the rising of the sun, the peak of a mountain. It was a constant, vibrant, an essential dance of devotion that sustained one of history's greatest empires. Thank you for joining us for this glimpse into the spiritual heart of the Inca. Next time, we'll delve into their remarkable achievements in engineering and architecture. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to continue our journey. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're tackling Chapter 15, The Reach of the Empire. We're about to explore the sheer scale and audacity of one of the ancient world's most impressive states, the Inca Empire. How did a civilization, without the wheel or written language as we know it, manage to build and control a territory so vast and diverse? Let's find out. Imagine an empire stretching for 2,500 miles. That's like traveling from New York City all the way to Los Angeles. But this wasn't a journey across flat plains. The Inca domain, known as Tawantinsuyu, or the Land of the Four Quarters, was draped along the spine of South America. The mighty Andes Mountains. This is a landscape of extremes. From the bone-dry coastal deserts of the Atacama, where rain might not fall for years, to the soaring, snow-capped peaks of the Andes that pierce the clouds, and down into the dense, humid Amazon rainforest. The Incas didn't just survive in these environments. They conquered and unified them. At its height in the early 16th century, the Inca Empire was the largest in the world. It encompassed parts of modern-day Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Think about the logistical challenge. You have millions of people speaking different languages, with their own unique customs, separated by some of the most difficult terrain on the planet. Yet, the Incas brought them all under a single, centralized rule. This wasn't a loose collection of allied towns. It was a true empire, administered from the magnificent capital city of Cusco, the navel of the world. So, how did they do it? The expansion of the Inca Empire is a story of ambition, strategy, and incredible engineering. It began in earnest in the 15th century under the leadership of a legendary ruler named Pachacuti, Inca. His name literally means he who remakes the world, and he lived up to it. Under Pachacuti and his successors, the Inca army, disciplined and well-organized, became an unstoppable force. But Inca expansion wasn't just about military might. They were masters of psychological warfare and diplomacy. Often, before a single stone was thrown, Inca ambassadors would arrive at a new territory. They would offer the local rulers a choice: join the empire peacefully, or face the consequences. If they accepted, they would be showered with gifts. Their leaders would retain positions of local authority, and their people would be integrated into the empire. They would be required to pay tribute and worship the Inca sun god Inti. But they could also keep their own local deities. It was a pretty good deal, and many chose to submit without a fight. If they resisted, however, the Inca army was relentless. Resistance was met with overwhelming force, and rebellious populations could be forcibly relocated to other parts of the empire. A practice known as the Mitma system. This broke up old loyalties and made future rebellions much more difficult. This strategy of assimilation was key. The Incas didn't just conquer lands, they incorporated them. They brought new peoples into their economic and social system. One of the most brilliant aspects of this was the meta system, a form of mandatory public service. Every able-bodied citizen was required to work for the state for a certain number of days each year. This labor wasn't used for the personal enrichment of the emperor alone. It was used to build the very infrastructure that held the empire together. They built storehouses filled with food and textiles, which could be distributed in times of famine or for state projects. They constructed incredible agricultural terraces on steep mountainsides, turning previously unfarmable land into productive fields. And most importantly, they built the roads. The Inca road system, the Capacone, was the lifeline of the empire. It was an engineering marvel, spanning over 25,000 miles. These weren't just dirt tracks. They were paved highways, some wide enough for several people to walk abreast, complete with staircases carved into mountains, suspension bridges swaying over deep canyons, and causeways built across marshlands. This road network was the empire's circulatory system. It allowed armies to move quickly to quell rebellions, administrators to travel and enforce the emperor's will, and goods to flow from one end of the empire to the other. Along these roads was stationed the chasqui, the imperial messengers. These were highly trained runners who operated in a relay system. A chasqui would run a short distance, typically a few miles, to the next messenger station, or tambo. Tere, tere. They would pass on a verbal message, or a quipu, a complex system of knotted strings used for recording information to the next runner. This system was so efficient that a message could travel from the capital of Cusco to the city of Quito, a distance of over 1,200 miles, in about a week. That's faster than mail traveled in Europe at the same time, and they did it all on foot in the high altitude of the Andes. This rapid communication was absolutely vital for managing such a colossal territory. The four quarters of the empire, the sayas, all converged on Cusco. Each su had its own distinct character, governed by a trusted official, often a relative of the Sapa Inca, the emperor. The administration was a marvel of organization. The entire population was organized into decimal units for census and taxation purposes, groups of 10, 1,000, and so on. This allowed the state to keep meticulous records of its population, its resources, and its labor obligations, all without a single character of written script. It was a system built on order, hierarchy, and reciprocity. The people provided labor and tribute to the state, and in return, the state provided security, infrastructure, and a safety net against disaster. From the sun-scorched northern coast, where fishermen harvested the riches of the Pacific, to the Altiplano, where herds tended vast flocks of llamas and alpacas, down to the fertile valleys, where farmers grew maize, potatoes, and quinoa. The Inca Empire linked these disparate zones into a single, functioning whole. They moved goods, people, and ideas across these incredible distances, creating a unique and powerful Andean civilization. They didn't just occupy the landscape, they reshaped it to suit their needs, creating a world where mountains and deserts became highways, not barriers. The reach of the Inca Empire was a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. It was a vertical empire, mastering altitude and environment in a way the world had never seen before. By connecting millions of people across thousands of miles of the most challenging terrain on Earth, they didn't just build a territory, they built a world. It was a world that, for a brief, brilliant moment in history, was held together by threads of rope, the footsteps of runners, and the unwavering vision of a kingdom in the clouds. Thanks for watching. If you found this exploration of the Inca's vast domain fascinating, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what part of the Inca Empire you find most impressive. See you next time. Hello and welcome back to our series on the Inca Empire. Today, we delve into a chapter of profound and tragic transformation. The arrival of the Spanish and the beginning of the end for a civilization that had thrived for centuries. This is the story of ambition, disease, and betrayal. This is the story of the Spanish conquest. Our last episode left the Inca Empire at a precarious moment. The devastating civil war between the brothers Huáscar and Atahualpa had just concluded. Atahualpa, victorious but weary, was resting in the mountain city of Cajamarca, consolidating his power. The empire was wounded, its people divided, and its leadership exhausted. It was into this fragile landscape that a new, unforeseen force would arrive, a force that would shatter their world forever. In the year 1532, a small but determined group of Spanish adventurers, known as conquistadors, made landfall on the northern coast of what is now Peru. They were led by a man whose name would become infamous in the annals of history, Francisco Pizarro. Pizarro was a seasoned explorer, hardened by years of campaigns in the New World. He was ambitious, ruthless, and driven by a relentless hunger for gold and glory. He had heard tales of a fabulously wealthy kingdom hidden deep within the Andes, a land of silver and gold, and he was determined to claim it for Spain and for himself. Pizarro's expedition was By any military standard, a paltry force. He had fewer than 200 men, a handful of horses, and a few primitive cannons, against the might of the Inca Empire, which could field armies of tens of thousands of warriors. This seemed like a suicidal mission, but Pizarro had advantages the Inca could not possibly comprehend. He had steel armor, steel swords, and firearms. Most terrifying of all were the horses, creatures the Inca had never seen before. To the native people, a man on horseback appeared as a single, monstrous being, a fearsome centaur-like god of war. As Pizarro and his men marched inland, they moved through a land already ravaged by an invisible enemy, smallpox. A disease brought by earlier European visitors to the continent had swept ahead of the conquistadors. It moved faster than any army, spreading from village to village with terrifying speed. The Inca had no immunity to this foreign plague. It killed with horrifying efficiency, wiping out entire communities. Some estimates suggest that smallpox may have killed as much as 50 to 90% of the population in some areas. The great emperor Manco Cápac, Atahualpa's father, had likely died from it, triggering the very civil war that had weakened the empire. The Inca world was not just politically fractured, it was being hollowed out by a biological catastrophe. When news of these strange, bearded men reached Atahualpa in Cajamarca, he was curious but not alarmed. His spies reported their small numbers. How could such a tiny group pose a threat to the Sepa Inca, the living son of the sun god, the ruler of millions? Confident in his overwhelming power, Atahualpa agreed to meet with the foreigners. He saw them as a curiosity, perhaps even a minor nuisance, but certainly not a credible danger. This would prove to be a fatal miscalculation. Pizarro, however, was not planning a diplomatic meeting. He was planning an ambush. He drew inspiration from Hernan Cortes, who had conquered the mighty Aztec Empire in Mexico a decade earlier, using similar tactics of deception and audacity. Pizarro's plan was simple and brutal. Capture the emperor. He knew that in the rigidly hierarchical society of the Inca, the Sapa Inca was the absolute center of power. To capture him was to decapitate the entire empire. The stage was set in the grand square of Cajamarca. Pizarro hid his soldiers, cavalry, and cannons in the buildings surrounding the empty plaza. On November 16, 1532, Atahualpa made his grand entrance. He was carried on a magnificent golden litter, adorned with feathers and precious metals, surrounded by thousands of his nobles and attendants, all unarmed as a sign of peace and ceremony. He expected to receive the foreigners and accept their submission. He found the square eerily empty. Then, a Spanish friar, Vicente de Valverde, accompanied by an interpreter, approached Atahualpa. The friar presented a Bible and delivered a speech known as the Requerimiento, a formal declaration demanding that Atahualpa accept the authority of the Spanish king and convert to Christianity. The interpreter, a young native man, struggled to translate the complex theological and legal concepts. To Atahualpa, who believed himself a god, the demand was incomprehensible and insulting. He reportedly took the Bible, examined it, and, finding no power within it, tossed it to the ground. That was the signal Pizarro was waiting for. He gave the order to attack. Cannons roared, trumpets blared, and the Spanish soldiers charged out of their hiding places. The cavalry crashed into the stunned and defenseless Inca procession. The sound of gunfire, the sight of armored men on monstrous beasts, and the flash of steel swords created absolute chaos and terror. The Inca nobles, though brave, were unarmed and completely unprepared. They threw themselves in front of Atahualpa's litter, trying to protect their emperor with their bare hands, but they were cut down without mercy. The slaughter was horrific. In a matter of hours, thousands of Atahualpa's retainers were killed. Not a single Spanish soldier died. Amid the carnage, Pizarro himself fought his way to the golden litter and personally seized the Sapa Inca. The God King, the divine ruler of the four quarters of the earth, was now a prisoner. The ambush at Cajamarca was a shocking success. The entire power structure of the Inca Empire was paralyzed in a single afternoon. With Atahualpa as his hostage, Pizarro held the ultimate bargaining chip. The empire, without its divine leader, to issue commands, was thrown into confusion. Atahualpa, hoping to buy his freedom, made Pizarro an astonishing offer. He promised to fill a large room once with gold and twice with silver within 2 months. This room, which still exists in Cajamarca today, measured about 22 feet long by 17 feet wide, and was to be filled to a height of over 8 feet. The legendary ransom of Atahualpa. Pizarro agreed, and so a river of gold and silver began to flow into Cajamarca from every corner of the empire. Temples were stripped of their sacred objects. Palaces were emptied of their treasures. Golden llamas, silver cornices, and intricate jewelry were all brought to the Spanish. The Inca people dutifully obeyed the orders of their captive emperor, believing they were securing his release. They delivered a treasure of unimaginable value, one of the largest ransoms ever paid in history. The Spanish were ecstatic. They had come for wealth, and now they had more than they could have ever dreamed of. Once the ransom was collected, they melted down most of the priceless works of art into standardized bars for easy division, destroying centuries of irreplaceable cultural heritage in the process. But what of Atahualpa's freedom? The promise was a lie. Pizarro never intended to release him. The conquistadors, particularly his lieutenant Diego de Alva, argued that a free Atahualpa would be a rallying point for resistance and would inevitably lead to their destruction. They feared his power and the sheer number of his subjects. Betrayal was the final act in this tragedy. Despite having fulfilled his side of the bargain, Atahualpa was put on a sham trial. He was charged with a laundry list of crimes, including idolatry, treason against the Spanish, and the murder of his brother Huáscar. He was found guilty and sentenced to be burned at the stake. 4. Inca, who believed in mummification for the afterlife. This was a fate worse than death. At the last moment, Fray Valverde offered Atahualpa a choice. If he converted to Christianity, he would be garroted, strangled instead of burned, allowing his body to be preserved. Atahualpa agreed. In July 1533, the last emperor of the Inca, after witnessing the beginning of his empire's ruin, was executed. The death of Atahualpa sent a shockwave through the Inca world. The central point of their universe had been extinguished by a handful of outsiders. It was a moment of profound cosmic and political disorientation. But the Inca were not a people to give up easily. The Spanish had decapitated the empire, but its body still writhed with life and a fierce will to resist. The conquest was far from over. In our next episode, we will explore the aftermath of Atahualpa's death. We'll follow Pizarro's march on the Inca capital of Cusco, the installation of a puppet emperor, and the rise of a new Inca leader, Manco Inca, who would lead a massive and desperate rebellion against the Spanish invaders. The fall of the Inca Empire was not a single event, but a long, brutal struggle that would last for decades. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this chapter of history as compelling as we do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of this incredible story. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our series on the great empires of history. Today, we delve into a story of ambition, betrayal, and the tragic fall of a mighty civilization. This is the story of Atahualpa, the last Sapa Inca, and the end of the Inca Empire. Our story begins in the 1520s, a time of turmoil for the vast Inca Empire. The reigning emperor, Manco Cápac, and his chosen heir both died suddenly from a mysterious disease, likely smallpox, which had arrived from across the ocean before the Europeans themselves. This power vacuum ignited a brutal civil war between two of Manco Cápac's sons, Huáscar, who ruled from the traditional capital of Cusco, and Atahualpa, who commanded a formidable army in the northern city of Quito. For 5 long years, the empire bled. Brother fought against brother, and the land was torn apart by a conflict that claimed tens of thousands of lives. Atahualpa, a brilliant and ruthless military commander, eventually gained the upper hand. In 1532, his forces captured Huáscar, and Atahualpa stood as the undisputed ruler of the Inca Empire. He was on his way from Quito to the capital, Cusco, to be formally crowned. He stopped to rest in the mountain city of Cajamarca, savoring his victory and planning the future of his reign. It was here, at the peak of his power, that his destiny would take a dramatic and unforeseen turn. Just as Atahualpa was consolidating his rule, a small band of strange-looking men was making its way inland from the coast, led by a determined and ambitious conquistador named Francisco Pizarro. This group of fewer than 200 Spaniards was looking for the fabled land of gold they had heard so much about. They were armed with steel swords, arquebusas, and cannons, weapons completely alien to the Incas. Even more intimidating were their horses, creatures never before seen in the Americas, which gave the Spaniards an incredible advantage in mobility and psychological warfare. Pizarro knew he was vastly outnumbered. The Inca Empire could field armies of tens of thousands. A direct confrontation would be suicide. So, he devised a daring and treacherous plan, inspired by Hernan Cortez's successful capture of the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma a decade earlier. Pizarro invited Atahualpa to a meeting in the main square of Atahualpa, supremely confident in his power and surrounded by his victorious army of nearly 80,000 soldiers, agreed to the meeting. He likely viewed the Spaniards as a minor curiosity, perhaps even potential mercenaries. On November 16, 1532, he made a fateful decision. To show his own power and lack of fear, he entered the square with only a small retinue of attendants, largely unarmed, leaving his main army outside the city walls. He arrived on a magnificent litter, adorned with gold, silver, and parrot feathers, a living god among his people. The square seemed eerily empty. Pizarro had hidden his men, his cavalry, and his cannons in the buildings surrounding the plaza. As Atahualpa and his followers entered, a Spanish friar, Vicente de Valverde, approached the emperor through an interpreter. The friar delivered the requerimiento, a demand that Atahualpa accept the authority of the Spanish king and convert to Christianity. He handed Atahualpa a Bible. The emperor, who had never seen a book before, examined the object curiously and then threw it to the ground, unimpressed. This was the signal Pizarro was waiting for. He gave the order to attack. Cannons roared, muskets fired, and armored cavalry charged out of the buildings into the terrified and unprepared Inca procession. The Battle of Cajamarca was not a battle, it was a massacre. Within minutes, thousands of Atahualpa's attendants were killed. The Spaniards, untouched by the panicked and unarmed Incas, swarmed the emperor's litter. In the chaos, Pizarro himself seized Atahualpa, saving him from being killed by his own men, and dragged him into captivity. The emperor of the largest empire in the Americas was now a prisoner of a handful of foreign invaders. Realizing the Spaniards' insatiable lust for precious metals, the captive Atahualpa made an incredible offer. In exchange for his freedom, he promised to fill a large room once with gold and twice with silver. This room, now known as the ransom room, measured about 22 feet long by 17 feet wide, and was to be filled to a height of over 8 feet. Pizarro agreed. Word went out across the empire. From temples, palaces, and storehouses, a river of gold and silver began to flow towards Cajamarca, laden with precious artifacts, intricate jewelry, and golden statues made their way to the city. For months, the Inca people dutifully collected the ransom for their divine ruler. They stripped their holiest sites to save their emperor, melting down centuries of priceless artistry into raw bullion for the conquistadors. It was one of the largest ransoms ever paid in history. But as the room slowly filled, the situation grew more precarious. The Spaniards were on edge, fearing an attack from Atahualpa's massive army, which was still camped nearby. Pizarro's partner, Diego de Almagro, arrived with reinforcements, and the newly arrived soldiers, who had missed out on the initial capture, demanded their share of the loot and a swift resolution. Furthermore, Pizarro received news that Atahualpa, even from captivity, had ordered the execution of his captive brother, Huáscar. Atahualpa feared that Huáscar might make a deal with the Spanish to regain the throne. This act proved to be a fatal miscalculation. It gave the Spaniards a perfect excuse to portray Atahualpa as a treacherous tyrant. By July 1533, the ransom was paid. The room was filled, but Pizarro had no intention of releasing Atahualpa. The emperor was far too powerful and influential to be set free. His release would undoubtedly lead to a massive uprising that the small Spanish force could not hope to survive. Betrayal was inevitable. Pizarro staged a mock trial. Atahualpa was charged with a list of crimes, including idolatry, inciting rebellion, polygamy, and, most critically, the murder of his brother, Huáscar. The outcome was a foregone conclusion. Despite the protests of a few Spaniards who found the proceedings dishonorable, Atahualpa was found guilty and sentenced to be burned at the stake. For an Inca, this was a fate worse than death. They believed that burning the body would destroy the soul and prevent passage into the afterlife. In his final moments, Atahualpa was offered a choice by Friar Valverde. If he converted to Christianity, his sentence would be commuted to a more merciful death by strangulation with a girl, desperate to preserve his body for mummification in the afterlife. Atahualpa agreed. On July 26, 1533, after being baptized, the last emperor of the mighty Inca Empire was publicly executed in the very same square where he had been captured. The death of Atahualpa sent a shockwave across the empire. The central figure of authority, the divine link between the heavens and the earth, was gone. The empire, already weakened by civil war, now became rudderless. Without their emperor to lead them, the massive Inca armies disbanded in confusion. The Spanish, with their puppet Inca rulers and alliances with local tribes who resented Inca rule, marched onto the capital, Cusco, facing little organized resistance. The golden age of the Inca Empire was over. The story of Atahualpa is a profound tragedy. A story of a powerful ruler brought down not just by foreign weapons, but by his own overconfidence, a deep cultural misunderstanding, and the relentless ambition of a few determined men. It marks the dramatic and brutal end of one of the world's great civilizations. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this story compelling, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments which historical event you'd like us to explore next. See you in the next video. Have you ever dreamed of uncovering a lost world? A civilization so advanced, yet so mysterious, that its greatest cities simply vanished from the map. Today, we're journeying deep into the heart of the Andes, into a realm of clouds and jungle, to explore the lost cities and hidden valleys of the mighty Inca Empire. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they were met with an empire of staggering wealth and complexity. The Inca road system, a marvel of engineering, connected a vast territory stretching for thousands of miles. Their cities, built with a precision that baffles modern engineers, were centers of culture, religion, and power. But as the empire fell, many of these magnificent places were swallowed by time and nature, becoming legends whispered on the wind. Think about it. Vast stone cities, complete with temples, palaces, and homes, simply disappearing. How does that even happen? The Andes Mountains are a formidable landscape. Deep canyons, dense cloud forests, and towering peaks create a natural fortress. When the Inca Empire crumbled under Spanish conquest and civil war, many of its inhabitants retreated into these remote, inaccessible regions. Cities that were once bustling hubs were abandoned. Over the centuries, the relentless jungle moved in. Vines snaked over stone walls, tree roots tore through plazas, and a thick blanket of green erased these urban centers from human memory. For hundreds of years, they existed only in local folklore, becoming mythical lost cities of gold, like the legendary Patiti. These weren't just small villages. We're talking about sophisticated urban centers. Take Choqquequirao, often called Machu Picchu's sacred sister. Perched on a breathtaking ridge high above the Apurimac River, this massive complex is 3 times the size of Machu Picchu, yet only about a third of it has been excavated. For centuries, it lay hidden, known only to a few local families. Huts, terraces, temples, and residential buildings are a testament to the Incas' architectural genius, a silent city waiting for its stories to be told. Then there's Vilcabamba, also known as Espiritu Pampa. This was the final refuge of the Inca, the capital of the Neo-Inca state that held out against the Spanish for another 4 decades. Deep in the lowland jungle, it was a city of rebellion and resistance. After its fall in 1572, its location was lost. For centuries, historians and explorers searched for it, often mistaking other ruins for this last bastion of Inca independence. It wasn't until the 1960s that it was correctly identified, a sprawling, jungle-claimed site that held the final chapter of the Inca saga. But of all the lost cities, one name shines brighter than the rest: Machu Picchu. Its story of loss and rediscovery is the stuff of Hollywood movies, and it all revolves around one man, Hiram Bingham. Bingham was an American academic and explored from Yale University, a man with a passion for South American history and a thirst for adventure. He wasn't necessarily looking for Machu Picchu itself. He was on a quest to find Vilcabamba, that lost capital. In 1911, Bingham led an expedition into the Urubamba Valley. Guided by local knowledge, he and his team braved treacherous paths and difficult terrain. A local farmer, Melchor Arteaga, told Bingham about some extensive ruins high up on a mountain peak. The name of that peak, Machu Picchu, meaning Old Peak in the Quichua language. Intrigued, Bingham, accompanied by a local guide and a young boy, made the arduous climb. Imagine that moment, pushing through thick vegetation, drenched in sweat, and suddenly, the jungle parts. Before him stood a sight that would stun the world. Perfectly preserved stone walls, intricate temples, graceful fountains, and sweeping terraces, all cascading down the mountainside. Framed by a dramatic panorama of emerald green peaks, it was a city in the clouds, a place untouched by the Spanish conquest, a time capsule of Inca life. He had stumbled upon something far more spectacular than he could have ever imagined. Bingham believed he had found Vilcabamba. He spent the rest of his life arguing this point, even though his evidence was shaky. It took decades of further research by other archaeologists to prove him wrong. Machu Picchu was not the final rebel stronghold. Instead, it's now widely believed to have been a royal estate, a sacred religious site for Inca leaders, or perhaps an astronomical observatory. Its purpose is still debated, but its beauty is undeniable. The discovery, or rather, the reintroduction of Machu Picchu to the world, ignited a global fascination with the Inca. It showed us what was possible, what had been lost. Bingham's expeditions, documented in National Geographic, brought images of this breathtaking citadel to millions. People were captivated by the mystery. Why was it built in such an inaccessible place? Why was it abandoned? The questions were as compelling as the city itself. The rediscovery of places like Machu Picchu, Choquequireo, and Vilcabamba is more than just an adventure story. It's a process of reclaiming history. These sites connect the modern world to the incredible achievements of the Inca civilization. They are not just piles of stone. They are living museums. Each terrace tells a story of agriculture, each temple a story of cosmology, and each house a story of daily life. They remind us that history is often hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for a curious mind and a determined spirit to uncover it. Today, archaeologists continue to explore the remote corners of the Andes, and they're still finding new things. Using modern technology like LiDAR, which can digitally see through the dense jungle canopy, researchers are uncovering new terraces, buildings, and even entire settlements that have been hidden for centuries. The story of the Inca is still being written, with each new discovery adding another fascinating chapter. These lost cities are a powerful reminder of the rise and fall of civilizations, and the enduring power of nature to reclaim what was once hers. They are symbols of human ingenuity, resilience, and the mysteries that still lie hidden in the world's forgotten corners. From Hiram Bingham's incredible find to the ongoing work of today's explorers, the quest to understand the Inca continues, and who knows what other lost cities are still out there, waiting in the jungle for their moment to step back into the light. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through time. If you were as captivated by the mystery of the Inca as we are, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the past. Let us know in the comments which lost city you'd most like to explore. Until next time, keep exploring. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're embarking on a journey not just through history, but into the living, breathing heart of the Andes. We're exploring the incredible legacy of the Inca Empire. You might think of the Inca as a civilization lost to time, their cities reduced to majestic ruins. But what if I told you their empire never truly fell? What if its spirit is still alive, woven into the very fabric of modern Andean life? In this final chapter of our series, Legacy in Stone and Spirit, we'll discover how the echoes of the Inca resonate today, in the languages people speak, the food they eat, and the sacred mountains they revere. From the bustling markets of Cusco to the remote farming villages high in the mountains, The Inca legacy is not just a memory. It's a vibrant, enduring culture. So, let us peel back the layers of time and see how an ancient empire continues to shape the present. Our journey begins with the most fundamental element of any culture: language. Long before the Spanish arrived, the Inca Empire unified its vast territory under a common tongue, Quechua. While the Inca themselves didn't invent Quechua, they elevated it to the official language of administration, trade, and daily life, spreading it from Colombia to Argentina. Today, Quechua is far from a dead language. It is spoken by an estimated 8 to 10 million people across the Andes, making it the most widely spoken indigenous language family in the Americas. For these communities, Quechua isn't just a means of communication. It's a vessel of identity, a direct link to their ancestors. It carries within its words a unique worldview, one deeply connected to the natural world. Concepts like Aini, meaning reciprocity, and Pachamama, Mother Earth, are not just words but guiding principles that have been passed down through generations, shaping social interactions and a person's relationship with the environment. When you hear Quechua spoken in a village market or sung in a traditional melody, you are hearing the authentic, unbroken voice of the Andes, a voice that has resisted centuries of change. It's a powerful testament to cultural resilience. Now, let's turn our attention to the landscape itself. If you've ever seen a picture of the Andes, you've likely seen the iconic agricultural terraces, or andines, that cascade down the steep mountain slopes. These are not just beautiful relics of the past. They are a living testament to Inca ingenuity and a vital part of modern agriculture. The Inca were masters of their environment. They understood the challenges of farming on steep, rugged terrain with fluctuating temperatures. Their solution, the andines, was brilliant. These stone-walled terraces created flat, arable land, prevented soil erosion, and even created much. The stone walls would absorb the sun's heat during the day and radiate it back at night, protecting crops like potatoes, corn, and quinoa from the cold Andean frost. Today, many of these same terraces, some over 500 years old, are still being cultivated by Andean farmers. They use the same principles, often the same tools, and grow the same staple crops that their Inca ancestors did. This isn't a historical reenactment. It's a practical, sustainable method of farming that has stood the test of time. It is a powerful reminder that the Inca's deep understanding of ecology and agriculture continues to feed people and sustain communities in the 21st century. The fields are not just farms. They are living museums of agricultural wisdom. Beyond language and agriculture, the Inca spirit thrives in vibrant cultural celebrations. One of the most spectacular examples is the Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun. This was the most important ceremony in the Inca Empire, held annually on the winter solstice to honor the sun god Inti and plead for his return to warm the earth and ensure a bountiful harvest. The original festival was a massive, multi-day affair filled with elaborate rituals, processions, and sacrifices. While the Spanish banned the ceremony after the conquest, it was never truly forgotten. In the mid-20th century, a historical reconstruction of the festival was brought back to life in Cusco, the former Inca capital. Today, the Inti Raymi is a spectacular reenactment. Held every June at the fortress of thousands of locals, dressed in colorful, traditional regalia, take on the roles of the Sapa Inca, his queen, priests, and nobles. They chant in Quechua, perform ancient rituals, and create a powerful spectacle that draws hundreds of thousands of visitors from around the world. But it's more than just a tourist attraction. For the people of Cusco and the surrounding regions, it's a profound expression of cultural pride and a way to connect with their imperial past. It's a day when the stones of Sacsayhuaman seem to come alive, and for a moment, the glory of the Inca Empire feels tangible once more. The Incas' connection to the land went beyond just farming. It was deeply spiritual. They believed that mountains, or apis, were powerful deities, spirits that protected the people and controlled the weather. Every major peak was considered a sacred entity, a living being with its own personality and power. This reverence for the mountains has not faded. For many Andean communities today, the apis are still central to their spiritual lives. Before planting crops, building a house, or embarking on a journey, people will make offerings of coca leaves, corn, or local spirits to the apis, asking for their blessing and protection. This isn't seen as a contradiction to their Catholic faith. Instead, it's a beautiful example of syncretism, where indigenous beliefs and Christianity have blended together over centuries. A farmer might attend Mass on Sunday but will also make an offering to a Pu-Osengate for good rains. This deep, spiritual connection to the landscape shapes the identity of the Andean people. The mountains are not just a backdrop to their lives. They are active participants, guardians, and ancestors. The same peaks that the Inca worshipped continue to watch over their descendants, a silent, eternal link between the past and the present. The legacy of the Inca is also etched into the very stones they laid. Their masonry is legendary. Think of Machu Picchu or the walls of Cusco, where massive, multi-ton stones were shaped and fitted together with such precision that you couldn't even slide a knife blade between them. This incredible skill wasn't just for building temples. It was a symbol of power, permanence, and cosmic order. Today, these structures stand as a powerful symbol of indigenous pride. The city of Cusco is a fascinating example. When the Spanish conquered it, they built their own churches and colonial mansions directly on top of the Inca foundations. You can walk down a street and see a Spanish colonial wall sitting atop a perfectly crafted Inca stone base. This architectural layering is a physical metaphor for the cultural reality of the Andes. The Inca foundation remains solid and unyielding, supporting the structures built on top of it. It's a daily, visible reminder that while a new culture was imposed, the original was never erased. It's the bedrock upon which the modern city, and in many ways, the modern culture, is built. These stones are not just historical artifacts. They are a declaration of endurance. So, as we conclude our journey, it's clear that the Inca Empire never truly vanished. It transformed, it adapted, it endured. Its legacy is not confined to museums or archaeological sites. It lives in the Quichua, words spoken in a mountain village, in the taste of potatoes grown on ancient terraces, in the vibrant pageantry of the Inti Raymi, and in the deep spiritual respect for the apis. The stones of Machu Picchu may be silent, but the spirit of the people who built them is very much alive. The Inca legacy is a story of resilience, a testament to a culture so deeply connected to its land and its traditions that it could withstand conquest, colonization, and the pressures of the modern world. It's a powerful reminder that history is not just something we read about in books. It's something people live every single day. The empire of the sun may have set, but its light continues to shine brightly in the hearts of the Andean people. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible exploration of the Inca world. It's been an amazing journey, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. If you found this series insightful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into history and culture. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of the Inca legacy do you find most fascinating? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. As our journey through the annals of the Inca Empire draws to a close, let us pause here, in the quiet embrace of the Andes. Imagine, if you will, the world falling silent around you. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fleeting shades of orange and purple before surrendering to the deep, velvety indigo of night. Now, a brilliant moon, a silver disk in the heavens, casts its ethereal glow upon the world. This is the Andes by night, a realm of profound stillness and ancient secrets. The moonlight bathes the colossal peaks, not in harsh daylight that reveals every crack and crevice, but in a soft, forgiving luminescence. The sharp, jagged edges of the mountains are soft, their formidable daytime presence transformed into one of serene majesty. They stand like slumbering giants, their snow-capped crowns gleaming like polished silver under the watchful eyes of a million distant stars. The Milky Way, a celestial river of light, is so vivid here, away from the glare of modern cities, that it feels close enough to touch. Look closely at the slopes. The moonlight traces the faint outlines of ancient terraces, those masterful stairways to the sky carved by Inca hands centuries ago. In the daylight, they are a testament to agricultural genius. But now, they are silver ribbons winding up the mountainside, silent witnesses to countless seasons of planting and harvest. They hold the memory of quinoa rustling in the breeze and the vibrant colors of maize under a midday sun. The intricate stonework of a forgotten outpost, perhaps a tambo where weary Chasqui once rested, catches the moonlight. Each stone, perfectly fitted against its neighbor, seems to pulse with a faint, residual warmth, a memory of the hands that shaped it and the lives it sheltered. Down in the valleys, the air grows cool and crisp. A gentle wind begins to stir, a soft exhalation from the heart of the mountains. This is not a harsh, biting gale, but a whisper. It weaves its way through the tall ichu grasses, making them sigh and sway in a slow, hypnotic dance. It drifts through the silent ruins of Machu Picchu, a phantom caress. On weathered stone, it curls around the corners of Ollantaytambo and whispers through the trapezoidal doorways of Pisac. What does this wind say? If you listen, truly listen with your heart, you can almost hear it. It carries the echoes of a lost language, the soft cadence of Quechua spoken in hushed tones around a crackling fire. It carries the faint, melancholic notes of a quina flute, a melody that speaks of love, of loss, of a deep connection to this land, to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. The wind remembers the sound of sandaled feet on stone pathways, the rhythmic chant of priests greeting the rising sun, the joyful cries of children playing in a village square, and the quiet dignity of an emperor surveying his domain. These whispers are not ghosts in a haunting sense, but memories embedded in the very fabric of this place. The Andes are more than just a mountain range. They're a library of stone and sky, a living repository of history. Every rock, every stream, every gust of wind holds a story. The mountains saw the rise of the Inca, their golden age of splendor and order. They witnessed their ingenuity, their deep reverence for nature, and their incredible feats of engineering. They watched as cities were built in the clouds and roads stretched across impossible terrain. The mountains also saw the empire's tragic fall. They felt the tremors of conflict, the sorrow of a civilization fractured, and the silence that followed. They have stood stoic and unchanging through the centuries that followed, watching as new cultures arrived and new histories were written upon the old. But the mountains do not forget. Their memory is long, far longer than any human lifespan, longer than any written record. As the moon climbs higher, its light seems to purify the landscape, washing it clean. The shadows in the valleys deepen, holding their secrets close. A lone condor might be soaring high above, a dark silhouette against the star-dusted con bus, its wingspan bridging the gap between the past and the present. It, too, is a guardian of this place, a living link to the time of the Inca, who revered it as a sacred messenger of the heavens. In this profound quiet, under the silver gaze of the moon, the boundary between then and now feels thin, almost permeable. It is easy to feel the weight and wonder of all that is past. The Inca did not truly vanish. They were absorbed, transformed, but their spirit endures. It lives in the resilience of their descendants, in the Quichua words still spoken in the villages, in the vibrant textiles woven with ancient patterns, and in the deep, abiding respect for the land. And it lives here, in the eternal presence of the Andes. The mountains are the keepers of the flame, the silent narrators of this epic tale. They were here long before the first Sapa Inca, and they will remain long after our own time has faded into memory. They stand as a timeless monument, not just to an empire, but to the enduring power of the human spirit and the unbreakable bond between a people and their land. So let us leave our story here, in Tisacrade moonlit space. Let the whispers of the wind be our final chapter, a lullaby of ancient times. Close your eyes and feel the cool mountain air. Let the image of these silvered peaks be etched in your mind. Because the Andes remember. They remember the Sun Kings, the stone cities, the golden corn, and the silent pathways. They remember everything. And tonight, under the vast, starry sky, they share those memories with us. Thank you for joining this journey.